Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. My martial arts will become an evil god. Chapter 101. Yu Nangsen looked here in horror. After feeling the terrifying power that erupted from the battle between the two here, there was even a feeling of horror in my heart. Because of this kind of terrifying power, it is not easy for him to do it even if he is a virtual existence. And the terrifying power that erupted after the two collided, even if he couldn't kill him, it would definitely be enough to remove 80 to 90% of his old life. He is a virtual class. Is this really two people who are not at the virtual level fighting? Yu Nangsen swallowed, thinking with lingering fears. Although Yuan Zong, an old fellow who has lived for a long time, has stepped into the virtual level with half of his feet, he has not yet completed his entry. Therefore, in Yu Nangsen's eyesight, he only possessed a person who was not weaker than the void level for a period of time after the power of the bloodline broke out. Not to mention Fang Ping. Yuan Zong has stepped into the virtual level with half of his feet, and already has some of the characteristics of the virtual level. 430s, such as the iconic feature of the virtual level, going in the air. However, Fang Ping, who obviously did not reach the virtual level, had a strange level of strength beyond imagination. Even if Yuan Zong broke out in the bloodline battle, he still only fell slightly, and even to a certain extent could be ignored. Especially the kind of attack that Fang Ping broke out at the end was even more powerful than Yuan Zong's trick. Simply incredible. The power that erupted in the battle between the two was like hitting him in the face. But looking at the huge damage caused by the battle between the two in the distance, Yu Nangsen's brows were deeply wrinkled again. No, with their resilience, if they continue to fight, I'm afraid it will take at least a day or two before the real winner can be determined. They must be stopped as soon as possible, or if they continue to fight like this, the entire Kangshan mountain will be destroyed by their battle, and even directly threaten Yuhuan City. Yu Nangsen frowned deeply in thought. But the thought of trying to stop the two people who had already beaten crazy, Yu Nangsen had another headache. Although he is a virtual existence, but seeing the kind of terrifying power that just burst out from the two of them, he is also afraid. Don't dare to easily intervene in the battle between the two. Otherwise, I am afraid that he did not successfully stop the battle between the two, and he would be severely injured by them. Seeing that in the distance, two powerful auras rose again, making Yu Nangsen even more headaches. We must find a way to stop them as soon as possible. And here, because of the terrifying power that the two attacked and collided just now, both of them flew out directly. The recovery ability of very two people is not weaker than that of monsters. Soon, the momentum of the two rose again, and they collided with each other. Among the countless dust and smoke, Yuan Zong was in a huge pit of dozens of meters, while Fang Ping was standing on the edge above the giant pit. Looking at Yuan Zong, who was looking at him with endless killing intent in his eyes at the bottom of the pit. Fang Ping smiled grimly. Come again. Scalp. The powerful power gathered again, the bloody demon dragon reappeared, and the terrifying power swept toward the bottom again violently. Seeing this scene, Yuan Zong's old face changed instantly. You can only continue to use the unique trick just now, and continue to fight against Fang Ping. Escape. Dodge. The looming eyes of the blood-splattered demon dragon had almost completely locked his presence. How can he escape? Unless they are really good at escaping, people with this level of strength are extremely fast. Otherwise, if you are timid before fighting, you will basically be chased and beaten in the future. Stay long and lose. At that time, the odds of winning will only be smaller, and it is better to face it directly, without showing weakness, and to seize the opportunity. What's more, he is stronger than the opponent. Why did he run away, hide? It's obviously the other party who has to hide and escape. Boom. The spooky ghost claws appeared and bombarded the bloody tyrannical dragon again. The terrifying power spreads wildly. Fang Ping stood naked and laughed grimly. Come again. Scalp. Boom. Come again. Boom. Fang Ping was madly laughing and using scale ju. The terrifying power also bombarded the earth frantically. Collapse, break, crack, destroy. The entire Kangshan mountain was devastated and destroyed by the battle between the two. After a long time, the last terrifying power erupted in the air. Poof, poof. Fang Ping and Yuan Zong in the air both flew upside down, spurting blood at the same time. He fell violently to the shattered ground. At this time, the Kangshan mountain, which was originally lush and covered with countless trees, has almost been destroyed by the battle between the two. All the small hills have all collapsed. With a puff, Fang Ping, who had just barely got up from the ground, spat out a mouthful of blood again. Fang Ping looked very weak at this time. He was indeed injured. Because he couldn't reveal his full strength, many of his methods couldn't be used to the fullest. For example, the powerful and violent Lei Fa, such as his true appearance. How could Fang Ping, whose strength is limited, not be injured? The strength of this old bastard is not weak, and it is completely comparable to the existence of the virtual level. Jia, old bastard, can you still fight? Although he was injured, Fang Ping did not panic at all. Instead he looked at Yuanzong in the distance with a grin and continued to taunt and provoke him. Cough cough. Yuanzong stood up slowly in the distance, coughed twice, and a stream of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. His pale face and the miserable appearance of bruises all over his body made him look very weak. But when he heard Fang Ping's provocation, he also sneered and looked at Fang Ping. Your injury is more serious than mine. Compared with this, you should think about how to avoid being killed by me. He was pretty sure Fang Ping's injury was worse than him. Hearing his words, Fang Ping smiled lightly. He was seriously injured, but... Jia, old bastard, do you know what disgusting is? Fang Ping asked Yuanzong in the distance with a strange smile. Seeing the smile on Fang Ping's face, his face turned pale, and Yuanzong, who was seriously injured, suddenly felt a bad feeling for some unknown reason. Then he could clearly see Fang Ping stretched out his finger at the central acupuncture point on his chest. Activates the seal of the cryptic acupuncture point. Life is returned. The countless life force sealed in the mouth of an acupuncture point in the body all gushed out. Fang Ping's injuries were recovering frantically at an incomprehensible speed. After just a few seconds, the injury on his body was basically improved by 60–70%. The aura that had become a little weak at first was instantly restored to its previous strength. I'm sorry, I'm fine. But you can die. Fang Ping's face gradually turned hideous and walked towards Yuanzong. And what about Yuanzong? He stared blankly at what happened to Fang Ping, and suddenly felt a kind of disgust that came from the heart, like eating shit. Nausea. Too disgusting. How can there be such disgusting people in this world? Yuanzong looked at Fang Ping, who had recovered most of his injuries in the blink of an eye. I just feel as bad as eating shit. With a flicker of eyes, Yuanzong broke out with his injured body in an instant, turned and rushed towards Yuhuan City. I want to run now, it's too late. Fang Ping gave a savage smile, his feet exploded in an instant, and he chased after him. Boom. A powerful Yuanwang gangsha directly slammed into Yuanzong's back. Yuanzong, who was seriously injured, was even paler when he received this blow, spit out a mouthful of blood, and flew out backwards. But he insisted, even forcibly squeezed the potential of the flesh again, and at the same time, with the help of Fang Ping's attack power, he rushed towards Yuhuan City more quickly. Seeing this, Fang Ping frowned and quickly chased after him. Yuanzong's plan at this time, how could he not see? This guy obviously wanted to escape to the city, so Fang Ping was afraid of hurting ordinary people and did not dare to use powerful attacks. If Fang Ping still does not have the slightest estimate of the attack, killing a large number of ordinary people, that would be better, so that the special registry could be dragged into the water. Anyway, as long as he can escape to the urban area, his chances of surviving will greatly increase. Old bastard, didn't you want to kill me just now? Ah! Fang Ping shouted loudly. Although the distance between the two is getting closer, the speed of getting closer is too slow. This old guy forcibly squeezed the potential of his fleshly body and rushed towards the urban area desperately. I'm afraid that in a short period of time, he really won't be able to catch up with him. At this time, Yu Nengxin, who was in the sky in the distance, also sensed Yuanzong's purpose, and immediately roared. Yuanzong, you dare. But at this time, Yuanzong was desperate for his life, and he didn't care about the shouting of the two at all. Boom! In midair, the extremely angry Yu Nengxin's eyes bulged instantly, and the strength of the virtual level burst out. Almost like a meteor that is hard to find with the naked eye, it instantly cut through the sky and landed in front of Zong. Yuanzong, you are courting death. Yu Nengxin looked at Yuan Zong angrily and roared. The terrifying momentum crushed all the surrounding space. Looking at Yu Nengxin, who was standing in front of him, full of terror, Yuan Zong's figure froze. There was a look of despair on his face. The road ahead was blocked, and there were pursuers behind. Is it really going to kill me? If that's the case, then don't think about it. What? Yuan Zong, whose eyes were full of despair, instantly screamed with a female voice similar to that of Yuan Shidong before. The ghostly phantom shadow reappeared above him. And in the screaming sound, blood was flowing out of his eyes, ears, mouth and nose like crazy. The ghostly shadow above screamed even more mournfully, and a stream of pus-like things flowed out of the dark eye sockets. The shadow gradually swelled, and an increasingly violent and terrifying energy gathered crazily. Feeling this violent inflated resentment, Yu Nengxin was shocked. Yuan Zong, what are you going to do? Yu Nengxin shouted angrily. At this time, Fang Ping, who was chasing after him, also gradually slowed down, and looked at the swelled shadow that was about to explode over Yuan Zong with some surprise. Yuan Zong, who was bleeding from the 7 orifices, looked at Yu Nengxin and Fang Ping frantically. He will definitely not let me go. Since I'm going to die, I have to find some burial. Do you think this can hurt me? Yu Nengxin said coldly. Hearing this, Yuan Zong laughed frantically. Of course this kind of resentment is useless to you, and it can't even hurt this guy. But I blew up the power of my bloodline. You absolutely can't control these rapidly spreading grievances. At least tens of thousands of people have to die with me, ha ha ha. Hearing this, Yu Nengxin became even more angry, took a deep breath and looked at Yuan Zong. Abandon this plan, I promise to save your life. Impossible, I will kill him. Hearing Yu Nengxin's words, before Yuan Zong said anything, Fang Ping said it in a very cold and direct manner. Ha ha ha, Director Yu, you see, it's not that I want to kill those people, it's this person who won't give me a way to live. Yuan Zong laughed madly. Seeing Yuan Zong, who was agitated and like a madman, and the increasingly violent resentment above, Yu Nengxin immediately shouted again. Calm down, Yuan Zong. I guarantee that I will protect your life based on my personality as Yu Nengxin, the head of the Special Mediation Office of Sejong Province of Sha State. I am a real virtual class, Fang Ping, he will not be my opponent at all. I'm all here, you still don't believe it, do you really want to die? Yu Nengxin looked at Yuan Zong with a very serious expression and said. Hearing this, and looking at Yu Nengxin's serious expression, Yuan Zong's heart once again had hope for life. If he could live, he certainly didn't want to die. Even if he will be punished by special mediation later. But no matter how dangerous or severe the punishment, at least, he won't die now. As long as you don't die, there is always a chance. He has already stepped into the virtual level with half a foot. As long as he is given a little more time, he will definitely be able to break through. At that time, it is his chance to make a comeback. It doesn't matter if the current Yuan family is destroyed, as long as he doesn't die, there will be a more powerful Yuan family in the future. You really want to protect him. At this time, Fang Ping looked at Yu Nengxin with an incomparably cold expression, and the aura on his body gradually became violent. Aware of Fang Ping's change in momentum, Yu Nengxin looked at him with a frown. Fang Ping, Yuan Minghui who hurt your father has been killed by you, and even the entire Yuan family has been destroyed by you. Your purpose in coming to Yuhuan City has been achieved, are you still not satisfied? Yuan Zong used the life of ordinary people to threaten, and he will definitely be severely punished by special mediation, and he will not be able to seek revenge from you again. This matter will end here. Yu Nengxin said in a deep voice. I said today that if I want to kill him, he will die, no one comes. Fang Ping's face was cold and he didn't give in. His attitude also seemed to anger Yu Nengxin. I saw that the powerful imaginary aura on Yu Nengxin instantly crushed Fang Ping's aura and descended on him. You think you are my opponent. And I am the director of the Special Mediation Office of Sejong Province. If you dare to take action against me, there will be no place for you in the entire Sha Kingdom. You really want to fight against the whole country because of Yuan Zong's life. Well. Yu Nengxin looked at Fang Ping coldly and said. Staring at Yu Nengxin coldly for a long time, Fang Ping's eyes flickered, and the momentum on his body gradually subsided. This time, I have written down, and I will come to you after I am in the virtual level. After that, Fang Ping left without stopping. Yuan Zong, Fang Ping has already left, why don't you put away your resentment? Glancing at the direction where Fang Ping disappeared, Yu Nengxin glared at Yuan Zong and said coldly. My patience is limited, don't challenge my bottom line. Seeing Fang Ping being threatened by Yu Nengxin and leaving with extreme embarrassment, Yuan Zong finally felt relieved. Director Yu, this is the old man's fault, and the old man admits any punishment from the special mediation. While speaking, Yuan Zong gradually withdrew the violent resentment on his head that was about to explode. The ghostly shadow of Li Gui gradually dissipated, and Yuan Zong, who was already seriously injured, was forced to squeeze the potential of his physical body just now. Seeing this scene, Yu Nengxin finally breathed a sigh of relief. It's finally over. His thoughts had only just emerged. Boom! An incomparably terrifying attack erupted in the distance in an instant, lashing out. I saw Fang Ping's hands spread out like a rock, blooming countless white lights, surging with a powerful Yuanwang Gangsha bombardment. Director of Tour. Seeing this scene, Yuan Zong's eyes were split in an instant, and he looked at Yu Nengxin in horror. Hope Yu Nengxin can protect his life as promised before. But to his despair, Yu Nengxin just gave him a cold look, and then stepped back a distance. At this time, he has dissipated those resentments, and even has no ability to drag ordinary people to pay for burial, let alone the ability to protect himself. Boom! A powerful bombardment came. Yuan Zong's body was instantly annihilated under this powerful bombardment. Falling to the ground, Fang Ping squinted slightly at Yu Nengxin. Director, you should know that I didn't go far, why didn't you tell him? Didn't you just say that using the personality guarantee will save his life? Personality. Oh, after being promoted to the virtual level, you can no longer be considered a human being. Where does your personality come from? Hearing this, Yu Xin smiled somewhat self-deprecatingly. Of course he knew that Fang Ping didn't go far, and probably guessed the purpose of Fang Ping, but he still didn't stop it. He didn't care about people like Yuan Zong at first, but the other party threatened him with the lives of tens of thousands of ordinary people. This hits his bottom line. He is not good at killing Yuan Zong, but if Fang Ping killed it, then there is no problem. So he didn't stop Fang Ping. Hearing his words, Fang Ping raised his brows and chuckled. Director Yu, it's a pleasure to work with. Then turned around and left. As Yu Nengxin didn't stop him, Fang Ping could naturally guess some of his thoughts. But it doesn't matter, his goal is to kill Yuan Zong, and this goal is achieved. Seeing his leaving figure, Yu Nengxin's eyes flickered, and he suddenly asked. Fang Ping, are you really going to fight against the country? Fang Ping didn't look back, just waved his hand with a smile. I'm a good citizen, I've always abided by the law, how can I go against the country? Hearing this, Yu Nengxin's eyes were dim. After the real contact with Fang Ping this time, he finally deeply understood some of the analysis recorded in Fang Ping's files. Both are true and false. But how much of it is true, how much is false, which is true, and which is false, only these two people know best. FK. In the Haichuan Special Mediation Office, Jin Feng looked at the messages sent to him by some of his friends, and couldn't help but say a dirty word. Jin Feng's face was full of shock, and his expression was a little suspicious of life. That's the Yuan family. That is the Yuan family that has many limit-breaking warriors, at least 5 secondary limit-breaking warriors, and even a Yuan family ancestor who has lived for a long time. Did Fang Ping really kill him like that? In normal times, Jin Feng would never believe this kind of news, and would even find it extremely absurd. But as one of the people who knows the ins and outs of this matter the most, Jin Feng is very aware of the accuracy of this guess. He had previously estimated Fang Ping's strength very high. But I never thought that Fang Ping's real strength would be so strong. In fact, due to the reasons that Yu Nengxin had instructed, the time mediation has completely blocked this matter. Even with a high degree of secrecy. Because of this incident, the Special Mediation Office has determined Fang Ping's true combat power to be at the virtual level. The confidentiality of his information and files has risen by a large margin. In the entire Xia country, only those real high-level officials in the Special Mediation Office can view it. It is estimated that even at the level of Yu Nengxin, you can only view some information about Fang Ping, but not all. Not to mention Jin Feng's level. He had been paying close attention to the news of Fang Ping before. But from the news channel of the Special Mediation Office, he could not find any information about the Yuan family incident. However, it is not that he has no other channels for relationship other than special mediation. Fang Ping and the others made such a big noise that thousands of people were about to destroy the entire Kangshan mountain. As the capital city of Yuhuan, there are so many people living in it, and not all those ordinary people are blind. How could he not notice the huge movement in Kangshan? So he just asked a few friends in Yuhuan city and learned some very common news. Combined with the apparently abnormal attitude of the Special Mediation Office to completely block all news about this incident, he basically guessed that the Yuan family must have been destroyed by Fang Ping. Even if it wasn't destroyed, it was estimated that the Yuan family would definitely be severely damaged by Fang Ping's killing this time, which was not much different from being destroyed. Otherwise, how could the attitude of the Special Mediation Office be so abnormal? He's also the director of the city's Special Mediation Office. Even he was unable to find out the specific news through the special investigation, which shows how huge the influence of this incident is. Thinking of this, I was once surprised by Fang Ping's sales calendar. At this time, Fang Ping had returned to his home. It's just that Father Fang hasn't come home yet. Although all his injuries miraculously recovered, all the doctors and nurses were shocked. But to be on the safe side, the doctor advised him to stay in the hospital for another day to check in detail to determine the state of his body. It seems that the speed of strengthening strength cannot be slowed down. Fang Ping murmured softly as he looked at the crowded scene on the road in the distance. In fact, this time, after the improvement of Qingxin production, his strength has made a qualitative leap. Even in the face of the virtual existence of Yunangsen, he was sure that as long as he showed his full strength, he could easily kill him. But that's when it becomes the strongest form and uses all of its strength. Otherwise, even if he is half transformed, it is estimated that he can only use the vitality sealed in the big mouth of the acupuncture point to fight against Yunangsen without losing much. After all, Yunangsen's strength is much stronger than that of Yuan Zong. Thinking of the sense of threat that Yunangsen brought to him, Fang Ping's sense of urgency was much stronger. As for the question Yunangsen asked, he also answered the truth. As a good citizen, he usually doesn't take the initiative to circle at all. How can it be against the country? But in case. Anyway, he felt that his steps to become stronger could not stop. The strongest form is his most important insurance. Unless it is a last resort, he will never let his full strength be exposed. That being the case, he just needs to keep getting stronger. As the overall strength increases, his strength under normal conditions will naturally become stronger. Host: Fang Ping. Martial Arts. Yulong Sanshi, First Layer, Prison Dragon Exercise, First Layer, Yuanwang Gangsha, First Layer, Dongshuan Tianxin Thunder Dafa, First Layer, Burning Lamp Method, Dacheng, Sky Poison Art, First Floor. Origin: 0. It's still a matter of energy. Fang Ping looked at the various martial arts on the Cthulhu modifier and thought with some headaches. Moreover, seeing that his origin quality had been used up, Fang Ping had even more headaches. The source material also needs to be collected. But the few times he obtained the origin quality was due to fate. The only two channels to obtain the source quality, one is the kind of strange monster that seems to be in another special space. The other is those powerful monsters. Whether it is the strange eyeball on the head of the centipede monster, or the strange drop of blood in the human face ghost tree, all can obtain the source quality. It shows that there may be similar strange things on other monsters. But unfortunately, this is difficult because not all monsters have these strange things. His soul-level monsters also killed a few, but there was no such thing in the bodies of the spider girl and the toad monster. He sighed heavily and rubbed his temples. Forget it. I still don't want to think about the source quality first. For the time being, the energy kings needed for these martial arts improvement is enough for me to worry about. If the realm of these exercises can be raised, the enhanced strength will definitely be enough for the time being. Yuan Zhou will think of a way later. After thinking about it for a while, Fang Ping didn't think about origin quality anymore. And thinking of energy, Fang Ping immediately thought of those special energies in the Qingxin cave. Then he thought of the guess that he had made after listening to Zhang Yongchen talk about the reason for the formation of the Qingxin cave. Thinking of this, Fang Ping's eyes suddenly lit up. Directly start searching the internet for the location of each nuclear power plant in Xiaoguo. Whether the energy in the Qingxin cave is nuclear radiation or not, you will know when you go to the nuclear power plant to sense it yourself. While Fang Ping was searching, several senior officials of the Special Mediation Office were also arguing about Fang Ping. Headquarters of Special Investigations. The strength of this Fang Ping can be determined, and according to Yunangson's report, it can already be treated as a virtual level. And his strength is in the virtual level, and he is not the weakest person who has just been promoted to the virtual level. In addition, judging from his character and acting style, he is more inclined to be conservative. As long as he is not provoked, he usually does not act easily. A man exuding a hot breath looked at the other people in the room and said in a deep voice, "I think we can draw him further and pour some resources into him at the same time." But when he heard his words, another old man in cyan uniform frowned. "I object. I don't deny that Fang Ping's strength is good, and he is definitely a genius. But his personality is really too moody, and he usually doesn't see anything, but when he is slightly stimulated, he will destroy people at every turn, and some are too tyrannical and murderous." Speaking of this, the old man looked at a few people. He still hasn't been promoted to the virtual level. Once he is promoted to the virtual level, his potential harm is too great. You should know what you will be facing after the virtual level. With Fang Ping's tyrannical and irritable character, once faced with those things will likely be contaminated and distorted his will, and no one knows how much harm it will cause. So I am against investing resources in him, and even we must pay close attention to his situation. Just in case, we must find his weakness in strength as soon as possible and have a stable way to restrain him. After listening to his words, several people nodded slightly, thinking that it was still reasonable. But one of the middle-aged men with some beards was against it. "I don't agree. Fang Ping is powerful and has a fast cultivation speed. Why don't we help him grow faster for such a genius? Is it just because of his character? Are there any risks that need to be faced after the virtual level? Compared to some people, his character is already very good. Looking at all the investigations on him, he is very good to friends, relatives, and even those who have helped him. We invest resources in it, and he will definitely not retaliate. As for the risks after the virtual level, no matter how good the character is, in the face of those things, who can guarantee that there is no risk at all, can you? What's more, Fang Ping has not yet been promoted to the virtual level, and his strength is already so strong. After he is promoted to the virtual level, his strength will definitely be stronger, and the power we have will become stronger. No AICF, is it better to resist those things? Commander Han has made several reports, saying that the situation in Heiyuan has been tight recently. Under such circumstances, do we have to push such a powerful combat force out of the door? Hearing this man's words, the others nodded slightly, thinking that what he said was reasonable. A few people whose opinions on both sides are not quite unified, there is another battle of words, each expressing their own opinions. The great man once said that there is no party outside the party, imperial ideology, no faction within the party, all kinds of strange things. Although this sentence mainly refers to the officialdom, it also applies to the situation within the Special Mediation Office. Because everyone's personality and experience are different, even if everyone's purpose is to defend the country, their attitudes towards the same thing will be different. It can be roughly divided into conservative and radical. The right to speak in the Special Mediation Office is basically half and half. This is also what the above is happy to see. Otherwise, such a violent department is still extremely powerful, and there is no difference of opinion because the department is not completely unified. It is estimated that the people who are most afraid will not be other people and monsters, but those above. Okay, your opinions all make sense. Now is the time to employ people. We have no reason to push aside a genius like Fang Ping. We must invest resources in him to help him grow faster. But his character does have a relatively large potential risk after the virtual level. I will urge the Research Institute to target Fang Ping as soon as possible and find a way to restrain him. In the end, when I heard these people's quarrels, it was the man with the strongest strength, the highest authority, and the hot breath all over his body. The next day, familiar restaurant, familiar without guests. Director Jin, what are you looking for from me? Fang Ping looked at Jin Feng, who suddenly came to him in surprise and asked. Mr. Fang, you can really destroy the Yuan family life. Jin Feng first glanced up and down at Fang Ping, and after finding that Fang Ping didn't seem to be injured, he raised his thumb in amazement. That was the Yuan family, it was destroyed like this, and it didn't seem to have been injured. This strength is outrageous. Fang Ping smiled and said nothing. If you win the prize, just call me Fang Ping. After several times of dealings, Fang Ping found that Jin Feng was a really nice person, so he was happy to deal with him. Haha, then don't call me Director Jin. If you want to save face, just call me my name or Brother Jin, or Brother Jin. Hearing Fang Ping's words, Jin Feng also laughed. He knew that he was letting this one really accept him and treat him as a friend. Okay, Brother Jin, you won't come to me just to talk about this time, will you? Fang Ping took a sip of the coffee on the table and said. He was actually a little strange. When he made such a big noise in Yuhuan City, the time mediation seemed to have no response at all. Should not be could it be that the special mediation office really does what it says, saying that it doesn't care about him and the Yuan family, and they don't care about their affairs? He estimated that Jin Feng came to him this time because of the follow-up of this incident. Well, the above has been sent to me about your punishment. Jin Feng said softly. Hearing this, Fang Ping frowned slightly. Sanction. Because of the Yuan family. Jin Feng immediately smiled and said, don't worry, it's not because of the Yuan family. The Yuan family doesn't have the energy to alert the special mediator. This punishment by the Special Mediation Office is because you killed the truck driver and ordinary people like Sha Jia before. Although these people really deserve to die, they didn't involve any monster incident this time, so normally, this kind of thing should be handed over to the police and the court, and the normal law will punish and sentence. In the end, you killed them directly. Although there is a reason for the incident, you must also be punished. And the punishment this time, said to be punishment, is actually a compulsory task. Jin Feng comforted Fang Ping with a light smile and explained in detail. And after hearing his words, Fang Ping's frowning brows loosened. It seems that the attitude of the special mediation officer towards him is generally positive. What is the content of the task? Fang Ping asked Jin Feng. Hearing this, Jin Feng suddenly laughed. I remember that your college application seems to be a university in Jingdong province, right? Fang Ping raised his brows, a little surprised. The mission is to go to Jingdong province. Well, yes, go to a city in Jingdong province to investigate a strange incident. It is suspected that there is a monster of the peak of the spiritual level hidden behind it. The people over there couldn't figure it out. They also sent people there, but they also didn't catch the monster behind it. It happened that you were punished this time, so they sent you there. His fingers tapped the table lightly, and after just thinking for a while, the craftsman nodded. Okay, I'll take over this task. Why do you want to travel to Jingdong all of a sudden? At Fang Ping's house, Fang's father asked in surprise. But after thinking about it, he understood. That's right, so many days have passed since the holidays. You've been clamoring for a trip before, and now it's almost time to play. After he finished speaking, he saw Fang Ping's tall, muscular body that was nearly 2 meters away, and said with a smile. Although martial arts practice is important, you should also pay attention to grasp the degree, don't collapse yourself too tightly, and sometimes relax yourself. Fang's father had returned from the hospital in the morning. The test results showed that his body is very healthy now, and even most people are strong and healthy. Didn't I sign up for the university in Jingdong, so I'm going to play, get familiar with the surrounding situation, and stop by the university for a walk. Fang Ping said with a smile while stuffing a few pieces of clothes into his backpack. Well, this idea is not bad. Look, I really grew up. Hearing this, Father Fang smiled and nodded, looking at Fang Ping, his eyes were full of relief. Because the news of the Yuan family was completely blocked by the special mediation office, Fang's father did not know what happened after his car accident. All I know is that Fang Ping came back overnight to visit him. As for Bai Manya and the others, and Bai's father, although they know some news, they don't know the specific situation. Although there are all kinds of speculations, they don't know what role Fang Ping played in it or what he did. So naturally, he didn't tell the father. Soon, Fang Ping packed up his things and took the car directly to the high-speed rail station. On the high-speed rail, Fang Ping looked at the information of Jingdong province displayed on the phone. Of course, his eyes were mainly on the information about the nuclear power plant in Jingdong province. The reason why he agreed to the mission to Jingdong province this time was because the special mediator had a positive attitude towards him, and he didn't mind giving the special mediator face. More importantly, because of the nuclear power plant. Jingdong province is located next to Sejong province, to which Haichuan belongs, just next to Sejong province. What Jin Feng called him last time said, "Don't think that if you flee down the sea river to the next province, you will be able to escape to Yamaguchi through the sea from the next province." It said that this neighboring province refers to Jingdong province. The nuclear power plant in Jingdong province is also the closest to Fang Ping. After he found out the location information of the nuclear power plant in the Sha Kingdom, he planned to come here. Therefore, he naturally didn't mind, and completed the task of special mediation this time. As that kind of energy nuclear radiation. Fang Ping squinted and flipped through the news about the nuclear power plant, thinking silently in his heart. At this time, Jingdong province, Yang City. In a hotel room. Chu Qingqing put down the big bag in her hand and smashed herself heavily onto the weak bed. "Ah, I'm exhausted, I'm in bed today, absolutely not." Chu Qingqing sighed loudly, and arched the soft quilt with her head. "Now that you know you're tired, when you were shopping just now, you didn't say that you were tired at all. And after shopping in the morning, go to those attractions in the afternoon. Didn't you come here on purpose to travel, and you don't even go to those scenic spots, so what's a tour?" Chu Qingqing's cousin looked at Chu Qingqing on the bed with some amusing and said, "Never mind, I'm too tired now, my feet are sore, I can't walk anymore, let's go to those scenic spots tomorrow, I just want to have a good rest today." As Chu Qingqing spoke, she squeezed the quilt tightly, hugged the quilt with both hands, and tangled her feet. "Cousin, you said that the person you liked also liked you very much before, but after a while, you suddenly found that he seemed to have completely changed, suddenly he didn't like you, and even a little deliberately alienated you. Why?" After lying down with the quilt for a while, Chu Qingqing suddenly looked at her cousin and asked. Hearing this, her cousin looked at her with a half smile. "So you suddenly said before that you want to replace your volunteer with our school, is that because of this? The person you like is enrolled in our school." "Oh, no, now I'm asking you, what are you asking me for?" Chu Qingqing looked a little shy, and directly covered her head with the quilt and said coquettishly. "Qingqing, you have to think about one thing, love is only a part of your life, not the whole of your life. The most important thing you should pay attention to now is your own development. Good love should not be something that holds you back, but should make you better. The school you are applying to is much better than ours, and it is also the most suitable for you. Never give up for anyone, and I know that this kind of hazy love feels very good, but most of the time, in fact, these 10 kinds of love will not have a good ending in the end." Hearing her cousin's sincere words, Chu Qingqing pulled the quilt off her head, her face very sad. She knew that what her cousin said was right, but she felt uncomfortable and even wanted to cry. "Cousin, could it be, ah?" Chu Qingqing was about to tell her cousin about the girl's thoughts with a bitter face, but when she looked over, she instantly let out a scream. The whole person shrank to the head of the bed in fright. "Qingqing, what's wrong with you?" The cousin looked at Chu Qingqing, who was suddenly screaming in horror, and was very concerned, and asked with some doubts. At this time, Chu Qingqing looked at her cousin, blinked, and rubbed her eyes vigorously, her face also full of doubts. "Are you hallucinating yourself?" After confirming again and again, Chu Qingqing smiled in relief and said, "It's okay, just now I was dazzled, I actually saw a black gas coming out of your head, and there was something like a grimace, scaring you. Kill me." Hearing this, the cousin was also speechless for a while. After looking back, she pointed to some black decorative patterns on the wall behind. "You see these patterns wrong, why are there black gas and grimacing faces on my head?" Chu Qingqing took a look at the patterns, and although she didn't feel like it in her heart, she still smiled and said, "It should be these patterns that made me see it wrong." Hearing this, her cousin also glanced at her worriedly. "It seems that you need a good rest today. It may be that the sun was a little too big just now, so you had a little heat stroke and hallucinations. It should be, let's have a good rest today." Hearing the day off, Chu Qingqing was immediately quite happy. Just talking, she felt a little itchy in her eyes and around her eyes, so she rubbed it. What's wrong with your eyes? Realizing that Chu Qingqing might be suffering from heat stroke, and now watching her rubbing her eyes again, cousin Chu Qingqing immediately asked with concern. It feels a little itchy, maybe the sun is too strong today, so the irritated eyes are a little uncomfortable. Hearing this, after her cousin thought about it, her eyes suddenly lit up. In this way, I will teach you a set of mindfulness meditation. This method is what I learned from the teacher in the school's psychological counseling room. It is very useful for relieving stress and anxiety. You should try it and you should be able to feel more comfortable. Chu Qingqing was surprised and a little disbelieving. Is this kind of thing really useful? Of course, I meditate for half an hour every night before going to bed, and then I can sleep peacefully and wake up refreshed in the morning. My cousin said immediately. Then the cousin began to teach Chu Qingqing mindfulness meditation. White noises similar to the sound of rain and running water are played on the mobile phone. The two girls closed their eyes and sat on the bed to meditate. Following the instructions of the mindfulness meditation instruction video on my phone, I calmed down my inner restlessness little by little. Paired with the soothing white noise that reverberates through the room, there really is a sense of serenity, and peace. But for some reason, the more she felt this peaceful feeling, the more Chu Qingqing felt that her eyes and around the eye sockets were extremely itchy. In fact, after returning from Zujia village with Fang Ping and the others, she sometimes felt that her eyes would be a little itchy. But never has it been as serious as today. So she rubbed her eyes again, rubbed and rubbed, her eyes opened inadvertently. In an instant, her pupils contracted sharply. What? A scream more terrified than before resounded throughout the room. Outside the Haoyang high-speed railway station, Fang Ping met Wai Wenrui, the director of the Special Mediation Office of Haoyang, who came to greet him. Wai Wenrui is a burly middle-aged man, followed by two special mediators. Mr. Fang, hello, I'm Wai Wenrui, I'm going to trouble you this time. Wai Wenrui very politely shook hands with Fang Ping. Director Wai is welcome, it is our duty to destroy monsters. Fang Ping said righteously. I read a little about the situation here, but can Director Wai tell me more about it? Fang Ping asked. Wai Wenrui nodded. This incident was caused by the mysterious deaths of several college students. While the few people were walking, Wai Wenrui told Fang Ping what they had already investigated. What happened here is mainly the mysterious death of several college students. After the special mediation team intervened in the investigation, they quickly noticed that 18-0 came to the Yizhang meditation method downloaded from the internet by these students. This meditation method is in the name of relieving stress and regulating body and mind, and these college students are facing a lot of academic pressure. Because of this, they tried this meditation. People who can be specially adjusted have also tried to meditate according to this meditation method. But they didn't have any exceptions. But after that, more and more people died in Haoyang City, and the death patterns were not very similar to those of the college students. Although they have cooperated with the official to ban the meditation method both in reality and online, the meditation seems to have spread. But the strange thing is that outside of Haoyang, there is no one who died because of this meditation method. Therefore, the Special Mediation Office determined that the monster who released this meditation method and killed those people had a high possibility of hiding in Haoyang. And its ability does not seem to be able to affect outside Haoyang. According to the experience of some similar monster incidents in the past, combined with the influence scope of this monster, the Special Adjustment Office roughly determined that the strength of this monster should be around the peak of the spirit level, and it must not have reached the level of the soul level. But the ability of that monster to hide its traces is so strong that even the special investigators can't find many traces. Therefore, the people sent before did not catch the monster. In the past 2 days, the range of dead people in Haoyang City seems to be expanding. After the monster behind him killed so many people, it seemed to become stronger. Therefore, after discussing with those people in special mediation, they will use the excuse of punishment to send a person with sufficient strength, Fang Ping, to deal with it. After listening to Wai Wenrui's words, Fang Ping raised his brows. Meditation. Send it to me. Wai Wenrui then sent the meditation method to Fang Ping. After reading the meditation method, Fang Ping showed even more surprise in his eyes. It turned out to be really a meditation method. Host. Fang Ping. Martial Arts. Yulong Sanchi, First Layer, Prison Dragon Exercise, First Layer, Yuanwang Gangsha, First Layer, Dongshuan Tianxin Thunder Dafa, First Layer, Burning Lamp Method Dacheng, Sky Poison Art, First Floor, Not Entry Level. Origin. 0. Fang Ping was very surprised by the meditation method that appeared on his Cthulhu modifier. He also thought that this so-called meditation method was created by the monster in the dark to kill people, but he didn't expect that it was really a practice method. Subconsciously, Fang Ping's thoughts moved. The Yuan Huang Gangsha in the body is being consumed at a slow speed. And the realm of that mindfulness meditation method is increasing frantically at a fast speed. Just less than a minute. Mindfulness meditation, perfect. It was also at the moment of its consummation that Fang Ping had been sitting on the mountain to watch the tiger fight, and his arrogant lantern-burning method suddenly seemed to have violated his territory. There was a lonely lamp, and a cluster of deep and dark flames burned quietly on it. The next moment, it suddenly became intense. The mindfulness meditation method that had just been elevated to the perfect state was instantly swallowed up by the burning lamp method. Even the kind of illusion that will appear when the practice method is swallowed, it is too late to appear, and the whole process is completely over. A quick batch. This light-burning method is very familiar with the truth of not moving like a mountain, and plundering like a fire. Mr. Fang, what's the matter? Wai Wenrui, who had been following Fang Ping, saw the fleeting fire in his eyes, his heart skipped a beat, and then he looked at Fang Ping with concern and asked. It's all right. Fang Ping glanced at Wai Wenrui with a half-smile, and then said directly. By the way, you have arranged a place for me to live, I'll go and put my things away first, and then deal with this matter. Hearing Fang Ping's words, Wai Wenrui immediately replied with a smile. Yes, we have prepared a place to live for Mr. Fang, not far from the Special Adjustment Office. But I still have things to deal with later. How about I ask my subordinates to take you there? Fang Ping nodded. Of course you can, trouble you. Then one of the two behind him left with Fang Ping. Watching Fang Ping leave, Wai Wenrui frowned imperceptibly. Director, who is this? Don't you know how urgent the situation is on our side? He even thought about going to the place where he lived first. Didn't he know that if he delayed another minute, someone might be killed by that monster? At this time, the special mediator behind Wai Wenrui said very resentfully. Shut up, Xiao Lu, Mr. Fang was specially sent to help us, how can you say that to him? And have I told you that no matter what the situation is, when dealing with monster incidents, you must be calm and don't be impatient. You didn't listen to me at all. Wai Wenrui scolded. I just can't get used to his style, so many people are waiting for us to rescue him, but he doesn't seem to be in a hurry at all. That little Lu still had a dismayed expression on his face. And after arriving at the residence prepared for him by the Haoyang Special Mediation Office, Fang Ping also directly started to dial the number of Yunengson he had just asked from Jin Feng. Hey, Director Yu, Fang Ping greeted with a chuckle. Fang Ping, what are you calling me for? Yunengson on the other end of the phone was surprised when he heard Fang Ping's voice. Fang Ping said with a smile, I'm not carrying out the disciplinary task of the Special Adjustment Division. I just want to ask, if I find that the director of the Special Adjustment Division is not right, can I kill him directly? Hearing Fang Ping's words, Yunengson frowned. You found out who's wrong. Forget it, don't ask. If there is really a problem, you must at least produce one piece of evidence that can prove it. After all, that's the director of the Special Investigation Department, and it's impossible to kill you without any evidence. Originally, Yunengson wanted to ask, but thinking of Fang Ping's character, he simply answered his question without any nonsense. Okay, thanks for letting me know. Knowing the answer he wanted, Fang Ping hung up the phone. Thinking of the abnormality he saw in Wai Wenrui after the mindfulness meditation method of the previous perfect state was swallowed up by the burning lamp method. The corners of Fang Ping's mouth twitched slightly, and his gleaming eyes narrowed. Looks like this mission will be over soon. Inside the hotel room, Chu Qingqing's scream echoed in the room. I saw that she was looking at the cousin next to her with a terrified face. Compared to her, she couldn't immerse herself in that peaceful state because her eyes were so itchy. Her cousin was completely immersed in it at this time. The corner of the mouth is smiling, the face is calm, and the look is peaceful. Cousin Chu Qingqing seemed to be in a very beautiful dream at this time. Even though Chu Qingqing made such a sharp cry just now, it still failed to wake her up. What made Chu Qingqing so terrified was the black fumes from her cousin's head. A distorted evil face appeared above her cousin, her mouth was open, and she was constantly sucking in the black air that was flying out of her head. Grunt. At this time, it seemed that he was aware of Chu Qingqing's gaze. The grimace suddenly turned and looked at Chu Qingqing. Facing the grimace's dark eye sockets, Chu Qingqing felt that all the hairs on his body exploded. The entire body was instantly enveloped by a cold malice, except for body trembling spontaneously due to nerve twitching. She feels like her body doesn't belong to her now. She couldn't even move a finger. The grimace slowly left the top of cousin Chu Qingqing's head and flew out towards Chu Qingqing. Move, move. Seeing this scene, Qingqing screamed wildly in her heart. She wants to move, she wants to escape. And at this moment, under her crazy strong desire to survive, she suddenly felt that her eyes became itchy, and even the muscles around the eye sockets began to itch. Itch. Very itchy. Chu Qingqing was even more frightened, she didn't know what was going on. That kind of itch that seemed to go straight to her heart made her feel that if she could still move, she would probably want to pull out her eyes. Scratch the muscles around the eyes. I don't know what happened to my eyes, and I can't move my whole body at all, I can only watch the grimace fly towards me. It's just that the house leaks and it rains overnight. Chu Qingqing's eyes were full of despair, and her mentality completely collapsed. Powerless and helpless, Chu Qingqing felt a deep despair. At this moment, everything in front of him seemed to be extremely dark. Abandon appearances, family background, and everything, just be a human being, a living creature. It turned out that she was so weak, so vulnerable, so incompetent. Faced with these circumstances, she couldn't do anything. The evil twisted grimace flew over, getting closer and closer to Chu Qingqing. Chu Qingqing could feel that in the next moment, he should die immediately. Die. What an unfamiliar word for her age. I don't know what to do when I think I'm going to die. Fang Ping suddenly appeared in her mind. At the time of the party, Fang Ping hurriedly ran to the toilet, his eyes were dark, and his face was full of strange black lines. The next scene was that they were on the high-speed train coming back from Zujia village. She kept staring at Fang Ping, and then Wan Ping looked at her helplessly. What deep eyes. It's almost like sucking people's souls into it. She still remembers the inner voice that sounded in her heart when she and Fang Ping looked at each other. Yes, it's like sucking people's souls in. Just when Chu Qingqing thought of this, she suddenly found out in horror. In the memory picture that emerged in her mind, Fang Ping suddenly showed an extremely strange smile to herself. Those deep eyes became more and more dark, more and more deep, and even became incomparably dark. It was as if his eyes had turned into the darkest place in the world at that moment. The weird smile became brighter and more frightening, and the whole body was chilled. A strange wave spread from the eyes of the strange Fang Ping in her memory picture. Chu Qingqing felt that her eyes and the surrounding area became more itchy. It was as if the cells in her eyes and surrounding muscles were agitated and distorted in some way. The next moment, she recalled Fang Ping's extremely dark eyes in the picture. There was a flash of fire like a crack in the abyss. The strange fluctuation instantly swelled to the extreme. The next moment, Chu Qingqing's eyes also saw traces of dark and strange flames. At the same time, the skin under her eyes suddenly split a small hole. A pair of eyeballs with countless black lines suddenly appeared in them, and they were turning strangely. The black line in the eyes kept moving, and the next moment, it ran directly along the corner of her eyes, covering her cheeks, forming a strange black circuit similar to runes. At the moment when the strange black circuits formed on both sides of Chu Qingqing's cheeks. At the same moment, in the residence prepared by the Special Adjustment Office, Fang Ping, who had just finished calling Yu Nangxin, suddenly stood up with an extremely surprised expression on his face. What is this? Fang Ping said with shock in his eyes. He felt as if he had another pair of eyes. And also saw a specific scene. In a room that looked like it was a luxury hotel. He was sitting on the bed, and in front of him sat a woman with a black head, and there was a distorted grimace in the air rushing towards self. Fang Ping's brows furrowed deeply when he saw the scene he saw with his extra eyes. What's up with this TM? Is it a hallucination? No, with his current strength, even a virtual existence can never confuse him. Is that because foresaw the danger that he would encounter in the future? Even more wrong, he still does not have the ability of this kind of clan. And he was pretty sure that as long as he wanted to, he seemed to be able to end this feeling of having a second pair of eyes at any time. After frowning and thinking about it, Fang Ping, who was still very puzzled, did not stop. Instead, he continued to look at what his other eyes saw. Look back, he watched helplessly as the grimace flew towards him. Chu Qingqing suddenly found that Fang Ping in the memory picture showed a weird smile to her. After a huge itching around her eyes, she suddenly felt a very comfortable feeling. Even her eyes suddenly felt a hungry feeling. Yes, she could actually feel her eyes convey a feeling of hunger. And this time, the grimace was even closer. Chu Qingqing felt that her eyes were even more hungry. In the next second, before she could understand, there were many black lines flying out of the eyeballs with black lines that appeared on her face. The black wires like iron wire seemed to be alive. He even tangled up in front of that grimace. The front end of the black line grew sharp mouthparts like mosquito mouthparts, directly piercing the grimace and sucking frantically. Woo, Fang Ping, I seem to have turned into a monster. In the residence, Fang Ping sighed slightly, listening to Chu Qingqing's bitter remarks on the phone. Poor God, although he is prudent by nature, he will poison when he likes to meet, and leave himself a backup. But he swore that he really didn't poison the classmates like Chu Qingqing and Shu Hai. What's more, at that time, his poison was only terrifyingly poisonous, not as weird as it is now. If he had poisoned them at that time, I'm afraid they would have turned into a rotting corpse at that time. So he couldn't figure out why Chu Qingqing's face suddenly grew a pair of weird eyes. And those eyes are connected by his perspective. That's right, although Chu Qingqing didn't say what he had become on the phone, he only said that he had become a monster. But he already knew who he was in the scene he just saw. Because after those black lines sucked the grimace away, Chu Qingqing went to look in the mirror. She was almost scared to death by her weird appearance. Fang Ping also saw self in the mirror. Who else could it be besides Chu Qingqing, who had a pair of weird eyes on his face and weird black lines on both sides of his cheeks? Fang Ping was also bewildered by Chu Qingqing's sudden appearance. Sighing with some headaches, Fang Ping asked, "Don't cry first, don't let people find out about your abnormality. Besides, where are you now? I'll finish the affairs here soon, and I'll find you right away." Hearing Fang Ping's voice without the slightest fear, but also extremely calm, the panic-stricken Chu Qingqing on the other end of the phone finally calmed down some of the panic in her heart. I am now in a hotel in Haoyang City, Jingdong Province. Fang Ping, I'm so scared now, I've really turned into a monster, what should I do? Chu Qingqing said with a cry. Hearing Chu Qingqing's previous sentence, Fang Ping on the other end of the phone was stunned. Are you in Haoyang now? I'm also in Haoyang now. Hearing this, Chu Qingqing, who was about to cry on the phone, was interrupted to cast spells. All what? Send me your hotel name and room number immediately, I'll come to you right now. After Fang Ping finished speaking, he hung up the phone and walked towards the door. He really did not expect that Chu Qingqing was also in Haoyang. Thinking of this, his brows furrowed. Could it be that the changes in Chu Qingqing had something to do with the monster incident in Haoyang? That's not right, even if it was because of the monster incident on Haoyang's side, it had nothing to do with him. Why can I see what the weird eyes on her face are seeing? With doubts, Fang Ping rushed towards the hotel location that Chu Qingqing sent him. And at this time in a villa in Haoyang. Below the wine cellar filled with all kinds of precious red wine, is an underground secret room. A short middle-aged man from Yamaguchi was frowning when he saw the violent monster in the cage in front of him. In the special cage glowing with evil light in front of him, a strange monster was being held. The monster looked like a swollen and pale gel-like brain, with many eyes on its body, and many flocculent slender tentacles under it, supporting its body. But at this time, one of its eyes burst open, and a viscous, stench-like tissue fluid flowed out. Someone destroyed the brain mother's eyes. At this time, a sound of footsteps came from the entrance of the secret room. The short middle-aged man from Yamaguchi looked over in an instant. I saw Wai Wenrui's figure appearing at the entrance of the secret room, walking over with a dignified expression. Jun, why, you came just in time. I was just about to ask if something happened to you. Mother Brain's eye was shattered just now. The short man frowned and asked why Wenrui. Matsuda-kun, I came here this time to remind you that you must slow down the speed of killing during this time, and the Special Mediation Department has sent people to Haoyang. Wai Ruiwan looked at Matsuda Kengo seriously and said, could it be that Brain Mother's eye was discovered by this person today? Kengo Matsuda asked with a frown. Matsuda-kun, I don't know what happened today, but you must slow down the speed of killing during this time. The person sent from above is not simple this time. I can feel that he is not easy to mess with. It is best not to let him find any clues. A flash of anger flashed in Wai Wenrui's eyes, and he said again in a very serious manner. Ha ha ha, Mr. Y, I think you are too nervous. You are the director of the Special Mediation Office in Haoyang. With you here, what can he find out? Matsuda Kengo laughed and said, not very concerned about Wai Wenrui's reminder. After all, no one has been sent by the Special Mediation Office before. But what is the use? Still can't find anything. With Wai Wenrui's cover, coupled with a monster-like Brain Mother, who has the unique characteristic of not exuding the slightest demonic energy, who can find him here? And seeing Kengo Matsuda laughing and not caring, the anger in Wai Wenrui's eyes was even more intense. With the expansion of the monster incident, the higher-level Special Mediation Office continued to send people to come, and he was always frightened. Using monsters to kill ordinary people to cultivate has already touched the taboo of special mediation. If he was found out, he would have colluded with the warriors in Yamaguchi. Then he will definitely die without a place to be buried. He now hates why he couldn't resist the temptation of Matsuda seeing me. Waijin, we can't slow down now, the Brain Mother is growing up and needs more souls to feed. When it grows to maturity, it is time for us to break through the spirit level and advance to the soul level. Quote, don't you want to break through the soul level? Seemingly also aware of Wai Wenrui's displeasure, Matsuda Jongwoo immediately persuaded him with the temptation to break through the soul level. Thinking of the fast training speed before, and the strength that he can reach the peak of the spiritual level now, the seriousness on Wai Wenrui's face became a little hesitant. Mother Brain is different from other monsters. He doesn't exude any magical energy. As long as you cover it up a little, no one will find out. The person who came last time couldn't find anything. Quote, seeing that Wai Wenrui was a little hesitant, Matsuda saw me and continued to persuade. Hearing this, a fluke thought flashed in Wai Wenrui's mind. He's right, this monster doesn't emit magical energy, as long as I pay a little attention, I don't even need to do much. This Fang Ping certainly can't find anything. But since just now, he has been thinking about Fang Ping's previous smile that seemed like a Wang Haohao smile but not a smile. He always felt that Fang Ping seemed to have discovered something, and even discovered his relationship with this matter. Every time he thinks of this, he has the urge to kill Fang Ping immediately. Taking a deep breath, Irie wrote Kengo Ko Matsuda. Matsuda-kun, I will always pay attention to that person's movements during this time, so I won't come too much. If you receive a notice from me during this period, you must immediately slow down or even suspend the killing of the Brain Mother. Hearing this, Kengo Matsuda nodded directly. Okay, it's about our safety, I won't be careless. Don't worry, Wai Jun, we are so well hidden, we will definitely not be discovered. Wai Wenrui sighed heavily, but when he saw the monster in the cage, his eyes became very hot again. Soul level, as long as it grows to maturity, he will be able to break through to the soul level. Dong dong dong, hearing the knock on the door, Chu Qingqing, who was apprehensive because of the strange changes in her body, suddenly asked in a panic. It's me, open the door. Fang Ping's dull voice sounded outside the door. Hearing this voice, Yi Qingqing hurried over to open the door for Fang Ping. She was scared and panicked because of the mutation on her body, and the only thing she could think of was Fang Ping. Because she had seen Fang Ping's black eyes and black lines before. That's why she called Fang Ping for help. Fang Ping. As soon as the door was opened, Ji Qing immediately wanted to hug him. But halfway through, seeing Fang Ping's tall and sturdy figure, he stopped instantly. Fang Ping, looking at Fang Ping's face that was very similar to before, but more determined, like a face that was cut by a knife. Chu Qingqing asked uncertainly. In fact, Fang Ping now looks almost 2 meters tall, and the change in body shape is too great, so she hesitated. What's the matter? Don't know me? Fang Ping raised his brows and asked strangely. It's just that his eyes always pay attention to the extra pair of weird eyes on Chu Qingqing's face. Looking at those eyes full of black lines running around, Fang Ping always felt like he was looking at himself. In particular, the black line in the eyes seemed to sense the presence of Fang Ping, and suddenly became more excited and moved faster. It's like a little kid trying to get his father's attention. Outrageous on Nima. But Chu Qingqing, who was confirmed by Fang Ping, rushed over immediately and hugged Fang Ping. What? But at the moment of hugging, when her face hit Fang Ping's chest, she suddenly let out a painful scream. Fang Ping's muscles were so hard, she felt like her face had hit a rock directly. You are ready to stand here, not afraid that others will see you now. Fang Ping looked at Chu Qingqing, who was crying while covering his face, and asked. Hearing this, Chu Qingqing immediately ignored the pain on his face, and immediately pulled Fang Ping into the room, slamming the door. In the distance, a cleaning ant who had just stepped out of the elevator saw this scene, and immediately shook his head and sighed that the current girls are really unrestrained. Inside the room, Chu Qingqing covered her face and blocked those strange eyes. Fang Ping, what's wrong with me? What should I do? Seeing Chu Qingqing's helpless expression, Fang Ping sighed lightly. Let go of your hand first, I'll help you take a look, and tell me in detail why this kind of thing appears on your face. Who is this person? Fang Ping asked cousin Chu Qingqing, who was still sitting on the bed, as if dreaming a sweet dream, but her head was always black. That's my cousin, but she's been like this ever since she practiced mindfulness meditation just now. No matter how I call her, she doesn't wake up, and I don't dare to disturb her for fear of hurting her. Chu Qingqing replied. Hearing this, Fang Ping nodded, looked at the black air coming out of cousin Chu Qingqing's head, and shook his head. He found that the monster behind him was really smart. When these people practice mindfulness meditation, they simply practice themselves as a leak. The reason why this meditation method can make people quiet is because it is constantly dissipating their own spirit and even the power of soul. Empty, naturally quiet, getting closer and closer to death. I even felt that I was dreaming, and of course I felt calm. As for the refreshment on the second day, oh, I will return to the light before I die. Cultivating this meditation method is like inhaling D, which will lead to more and more serious dependence. When sucking, it is like going to heaven, and after the sucking is broken, it is the same as eating the body of 10,000 insects. Therefore, people who practice meditation will feel extremely comfortable and peaceful when they enter meditation. But in fact, they are more likely to feel restless than before, and thus rely more on this meditation method. This cycle continues, and finally the soul is exhausted and dies in a beautiful dream. Use the power of your own soul to ripen your own leek. Then wait for that monster to harvest the leeks that they have grown up. How selfless and selfless dedication. The capitalists were moved to tears when they heard it. She's so dangerous now. Looking at cousin Chu Qingqing, who was still ventilated, Fang Ping sighed softly. Then what should we do? Chu Qingqing asked in a hurry. Her cousin treats her very well, so she doesn't want her cousin to have an accident. What? It's easy to do. Fang Ping stepped forward and slapped him. With a snap, cousin Chu Qingqing was knocked unconscious on the bed, and the left side of her face quickly swelled up. Okay, come here, I'll check it for you. After seeing that cousin Chu Qingqing was no longer in the dark, Fang Lai shouted at Chu Qingqing. Then Fang Ping checked the strange eyes on Chu Qingqing's face, while listening to Chu Qingqing talk about the whole thing that just happened. Including meditation, grimace, and the sudden weird smile of him in her memory. A long time, Fang Ping frowned and looked at Chu Qingqing. According to what you said, these changes on your face actually saved your daughter. Hearing this, Chu Qingqing was slightly startled. She had been immersed in the fear of her own mutation just now. When I think about it now, it was really the strange eyes that appeared on her face that saved her life, otherwise she would have been killed by that grimace. At that time, she could clearly experience the desperation that was on the verge of death. You said that, it really saved me. Chu Qingqing said with a somewhat absent-minded expression. Then what are you thinking now? Fang Ping asked softly. He checked it out just now and found that the eyes on Chu Qingqing's face also had black lines on both sides of his cheeks. There is actually some strange energy that is somewhat similar to his burning lamp method. Although I don't know why my own burning lamp method has this ability to affect other people. But after sorting out Chu Qingqing's words, Fang Ping probably had some guesses. It should be that on the way back from Zujia village, Chu Qingqing kept staring at him, and the two of them looked at each other many times during this period. When you are staring into the abyss is also staring at you. Staring at Fang Ping all the time, her eyes and the surrounding flesh were affected by the strange power of the burning lamp. It's just that this effect doesn't usually lead to much change. Chu Qingqing had nothing to do before. But this time, when he met that grimace, Chu Qingqing felt extremely desperate. Despair, hatred, jealousy and other dark emotions are simply the favorite food for the power of burning lamps. However, Chu Qingqing's eyes and the surrounding flesh and blood, who were affected by the power of the burning lamp, seemed to have similar characteristics. So under the cultivation of Chu Qingqing's countless despairing emotions, her eyes and the surrounding flesh and blood quickly underwent some kind of distortion, so it became what it is now. Fang Ping glanced at the solitary lamp formed by the burning lamp method above the sea of consciousness between his eyebrows. It seems to sense Fang Ping's gaze. The darkness on the lamp was extremely dark, like a crooked abyss-like flame swayed. It's like a arrogant little fat man humming proudly. Seeing this scene, Fang Ping left the inner vision without a word. What do you think? Chu Qingqing looked at Fang Ping suspiciously. Yes, Fang Ping nodded. Do you want to return to the normal appearance before, or do you want to keep this abnormal change? Hearing Fang Ping's question, Chu Qingqing suddenly fell silent. She wanted to say that she wanted to change back to her normal appearance. But thinking of the extreme despair when faced with the grimace flying over before, it was as if the world in front of him had become a gloomy despair. That kind of powerlessness, the extreme feeling of powerlessness that can only watch everything happen, but can't do anything, even move. Chu Qingqing's ugly expression kept changing. After a while, her eyes fixed on Fang Ping. I want to keep this change, even if I'm treated as a monster. Chu Qingqing's tone was very firm. Seeing Chu Qingqing's firm expression at this time, Fang Ping's mouth twitched slightly, and his eyes softened a little. He suddenly saw in Chu Qingqing what he looked like when he first crossed into this world. The kind that doesn't matter what it will become. It doesn't matter whether it's a pervert, a monster, or even a monster. It's just that he doesn't want to face despair anymore, and wants to hold his own life in his hands. You are not a monster, there are so many things in this world that you don't know. Fang Ping looked at Chu Qingqing and said softly. He stretched out his fingers and stroked her face gently, sliding his fingertips along her bizarre eyes and the black lines on both sides of her cheeks. Don't resist it being there, try to accept it, it's there. Finally, control it. His deep eyes, the corners of his mouth, and his low voice seemed to be filled with some kind of magic. Chu Qingqing was fascinated for a while. Chu Qingqing left. She left with her cousin. She also left with the insights she got from Fang Ping. Although Fang Ping didn't know what kind of insight she got from herself. But before leaving, Fang Ping told her what ordinary people in this world don't know. At the same time, considering Chu Qingqing's situation, he also taught her some simple martial arts. It's not that Fang Ping is unwilling to teach her the martial arts that he is currently practicing. Mainly because these martial arts are too dangerous. If Chu Qingqing practiced these martial arts, I am afraid that he would die without getting started. After solving Chu Qingqing's problem, Fang Ping also began to think about the strange power of his own lamp-burning method. If it weren't for the incident of Chu Qingqing, he really didn't know that his own lantern-burning method had such a strange ability. Able to influence others. Under the inner vision, Fang Ping stared deeply at the burning lamp above the sea of consciousness between the eyebrows. A dark flame swayed slightly, and the darkest part of the center of the flame was extremely dark, like a crack connecting the abyss. The chaotic thoughts of the human face ghost tree before, and the sinister aura of the various monsters behind it. Even the malice and power of that weird invisible existence was swallowed up by this firelight. It was as if the linear part in the center of this cluster of flames was really connected to a bottomless abyss. In the darkness, there is only malice condensed by countless despair and endless dark emotions. And it seems to be because the direct burning lamp method devoured the meditation method. The previous burning lamp method could only passively affect other people. Look at me, I can gradually erode and affect you. But now, Fang Ping actually has a feeling that he can actively radiate the maliciousness in the core of the fire. Because the main effect of the mindfulness meditation method is to dissipate the power of one's own soul, after the burning lamp method devours it, this characteristic is integrated into it. It's just that the original meditation method is to dissipate and consume the power of one's own soul. However, what the burning lamp method radiates is the kind of dark and twisted malice. These exercises are getting weirder and weirder. Fang Ping couldn't help sighing after he almost figured out the effect of the power of the burning lamp method. Mr. Fang, do you have any thoughts on this matter now? Where are you going to start the investigation? We will definitely cooperate with you. Early in the morning, Wai Wenrui took the two men from yesterday to find Fang Ping. Mr. Fang, it's not that I want to urge you, the main reason is that if you delay a little more time now, more people may suffer. Wai Wenrui looked worried and seemed to be very pitiful. After returning from that underground room yesterday, the half-smiling smile that Fang Ping looked at him before would always appear in his mind. The more I think about it, the more uneasy it becomes. So he came to the door early in the morning. If he wants to figure out Fang Ping's plan as soon as possible, he needs to be prepared. Hearing this, Fang Ping looked at him with a chuckle. Director Y is really conscientious. Well, let's go investigate. Hearing Fang Ping's praise, Wai Wenrui looked ashamed. I don't dare, I just hate my lack of ability, and let so many people be harmed by monsters. Then the group left the residence and began to investigate. Mr. Fang, I don't know where you are going to start now. Wai Wenrui looked at Fang Ping and asked. Fang Ping thought back for a while, and said casually, just start the investigation from the place you went to. What? Hearing Fang Ping's words, not only Ai Rui was stunned. Even the other two people from the special adjustment department behind him were stunned. I don't understand what Mr. Fang said. I didn't go anywhere yesterday. A flash of panic flashed in Wai Wenrui's eyes, and he said with a slightly stiff smile. Did you really not go anywhere? Fang Ping looked at Wai Wenrui with a smile. Although he went to find Chu Qingqing yesterday, it did not mean that he did not pay attention to Wai Wenrui's movements. Wai Wenrui has his poison on his body. Where he went yesterday, he could always sense it yesterday. As for when Wai Wenrui was poisoned, well, when he shook hands with Wai Wenrui at the time, he subconsciously, incidentally, took a little bit of poison. He assured him that he was not prepared to be bad for Wai Wenrui at the time. After all, he hadn't found anything unusual about Wai Wenrui at the time. It's just because it's easy to get used to. Unexpectedly, when he raised the meditation method that Wai Wenrui had passed on to him to perfection, he immediately discovered that Wai Wenrui was wrong. Yintang turned black. No, it was because the whole head had some residual very subtle breath. It seems that it has not been completely absorbed by him. That kind of breath obviously does not belong to Wai Wenrui, as if he devoured it from somewhere, but it has not been fully absorbed and digested. However, he only noticed the abnormality of Wai Wenrui at the time, and he didn't know whether Wai Wenrui had something to do with the monster incident in Haoyang. Coupled with the issue of Wai Wenrui's identity. That's why he didn't act immediately and took him directly. Unexpectedly, the poison he gave to Wai Wenrui really brought him a surprise. As long as the distance is not too far, Fang Ping can clearly sense the location and condition of his toxin. So he clearly sensed that Wai Wenrui went to a certain place to stay for a while. This makes Fang Ping very grateful for his good habit of keeping a hand when he sees someone. No, it instantly made his task easier this time. And after I asked Yunangsen, I knew that I could do something to him. Fang Ping wasn't ready to waste any more time with him. He still has to go to the nuclear power plant to verify his guess. No time to be here with their mother-in-law. Let's go, what are you still doing? Looking at Wai Wenrui who was still standing there, Fang Ping raised his brows and asked strangely. Mr. Fang, although you are the one sent from above, I would like to ask you to explain what you just said. You mean I'm colluding with this monster incident? Wai Wenrui was very angry and looked at Fang Ping very seriously. Wai Wenrui, is not capable enough to cause so many people to be harmed by monsters, but this is not the reason for you to doubt me. I'm the director of the Haoyang Special Mediation Office. I have an unshakable belief. What you just said was insulting me. You can question my abilities, but not my character. If you don't speak clearly, even if this lawsuit goes to headquarters, I will never give up. Wai Wenrui angrily questioned Fang Ping, and nearly smashed the table and smashed the bench. Hearing his words, the two special mediators behind him immediately shared the same hatred and glared at Fang Ping with indignation. This person came yesterday and didn't do anything, and even before the investigation started, he even suspected that their director was colluding with monsters. It is tolerable, it is simply unbearable. Looking at Wai Wenrui's righteous words, it seemed as if he had been insulted by the sky. Fang Ping's mouth twitched. Hey, take a special pressure on me, right? Chapter 111. Take special mediation to oppress me, right? Fang Ping smiled coldly. Then tell me, where did you go yesterday afternoon? Hearing this, Wai Wenrui, who was full of anger, flashed an even more panicked look in the depths of his eyes. He actually knew where I was going. Did he follow me yesterday? Thinking of this, Wai Wenrui said even more sternly, Fang Ping, don't break the topic, don't break the topic. Where do I go as the director of the Special Mediation Office to investigate the whereabouts of the monsters? Is it possible that I have to report to you one by one? Boom. Before Wai Wenrui's voice could be heard, Fang Ping grabbed his head and slammed it on the ground. Tough mouth, right, I told you in a good voice, why didn't you listen? Fang Ping's face was a little grim. Stop. Seeing Fang Ping's actions, the two special adjustment officers immediately shouted, 700, towards Fang Ping. The two of them were all ready to fight, as if they were about to attack Fang Ping in the next moment. You stay with me honestly, otherwise I will suspect that you are also colluding with monsters. Fang Ping's sharp icy gaze swept across in an instant. Stared at by Fang Ping's terrifying eyes, the two of them instantly froze, and they couldn't help but feel a fear in their hearts. Fang Ping, you are so brave, you dare to attack the director of the Special Mediation Office, Special. Wai Wenrui, whose face was covered in blood by Fang Ping, got up from the ground and shouted angrily at Fang Ping. At the same time, an aura rose from his body. But the next moment, his aura dissipated immediately. I saw that Fang Ping didn't wait for him to finish his words, and just grabbed his neck and lifted it up. The inner energy surging in his body was instantly suppressed by Fang Ping's terrifying power. My courage is more than that. If I continue to talk nonsense, believe me or not. Fang Ping looked at Wai Wenrui with a grin. Feel the terrifying power of Fang Ping, and the big hand gripping his neck like a steel hoop. A flash of fear flashed in Wai Wenrui's eyes. And looking at Fang Ping's violent gaze, he had a feeling. If he really talks again, I am afraid that Fang Ping will directly kill him without hesitation. This man is a lunatic. Under the fear of death, Wai Wenrui didn't dare to speak again. At this time, Fang Ping looked directly at the other two and ordered, go and drive the car over. The two hesitated for a moment, and Zhang Ping's eyes suddenly widened. Why, are you trying to protect this guy who colluded with monsters now? Hearing this, one of the two gritted his teeth and said with Fang Ping's tingling eyes, the director will not collude with monsters. Hearing this, Fang Ping sneered, whether he colluded with monsters, you will find out later, but if you don't drive over now, you will be suspected of colluding with monsters. The man looked at Fang Ping, and then at Wai Wenrui, whose face was flushed by Fang Ping's neck, and ran to drive the car over. Then Fang Ping carried Wai Wenrui directly into the car as if carrying a dead dog. Fang Ping directed the two of them to drive towards the villa according to the location of the toxin they sensed last night. It didn't take long. The car stopped directly outside the villa. Seeing this scene, a hint of despair flashed in Wai Wenrui's eyes. What? When you see this place, what else do you want to say? Fang Ping raised the corner of his mouth and looked at Wai Wenrui. Wai Wenrui didn't speak, kept his mouth shut, but clenched his fist slightly. He knew what he was doing, and it was very likely that someone would find out. But he never thought it would be so fast. Why didn't this Fang Ping come later? When he comes later, the brain mother grows to a mature stage, and he can use it to break through to the soul level. As long as he breaks through to the soul level, this guy will definitely not be his opponent. At that time, even if he found out about his own affairs, he could directly kill him and kill him. After the big deal, I went to Yamaguchi with Kengo Matsuda. With his soul level strength, Yamaguchi definitely would not refuse his surrender. Now, it's all turned into a fantasy. A flash of resentment flashed in Wai Wenrui's eyes, and then he immediately became extremely firm. Escape, must escape. This guy knows this place and must have found out what I was doing before. When they caught Matsuda Kengo himself, even if he wanted to escape, he would not be able to escape. Wai Wenrui knew very well that with Kengo Matsuda's character, I am afraid that as long as he moved a little bit, he would give himself up. Therefore, he is very clear that there is only one way in front of him now, and that is to escape. This is Jingdong province, which is close to the sea. He can only escape out of the sea and escape to Yamaguchi. He still has a chance to survive. Let's go, let me see, what's the secret you're hiding? Fang Ping grabbed Wai Wenrui and got out of the car with a wicked smile. With the two special mediators, they walked towards the villa. When walking into the gate of the villa, Wai Wenrui's foot stumbled slightly. Boom! In an instant, a violent explosion sounded directly. Most of the villa collapsed in an instant because of the explosion, and thick smoke was scattered. Swish! The next moment, a figure suddenly rushed out of the thick smoke incomparably fast, running straight into the distance. Success! Wai Wenrui's face was full of excitement. This feeling of escaping from a desperate situation made Wenrui want to laugh. I know that God will never kill me. Fortunately, I was smart and arranged a precautionary measure in this villa. Otherwise, everything is really over. But while running, Wai Wenrui suddenly felt a sharp pain coming from his body. Even this severe pain is madly intensifying, spreading. Hiss! Wai Wenrui tore off the clothes on his chest, and the next moment his pupils shrank. I saw black spots that kept getting bigger and bigger on his chest and body. The flesh in the black spots rotted rapidly. The heart-piercing pain instantly made him fall to the ground, and the lotus body twitched and screamed. Now, do you still think your director is fine? And in the thick smoke behind, Fang Ping grabbed the two young people from the special mediation office and walked out. Chief. At this time, both of them looked at Wai Wenrui, who was rolling on the ground, screaming and twitching in disbelief. One of them was still very pale, and the corners of his mouth were bleeding. They were walking behind Fang Ping and Wai Wenrui just now. So they clearly saw that Wai Wenrui pretended to trip and cause the explosion, and then fled directly outside. And the wounded man with blood dripping from the corner of his mouth was severely injured by his slap because he blocked Wai Wenrui's escape route. Stumbling can be explained. Causing an explosion to be an accidental touch, and even running away can be explained as temporarily leaving the blast range. But why do you hurt people? Just because he was in the direction of your escape and prevented you from escaping, you just slammed him away. Facts speak louder than words. At this time, how could they still not know that their director may have really colluded with monsters? At this moment, Fang Ping's brows suddenly raised, and his eyes instantly turned to the other side of the thick smoke. Any accomplices? Boom! The violent explosion shook the entire underground chamber. No, something happened. In the secret room, Kengo Matsuda, who was using the brain mother monster to cultivate, immediately changed his face. Immediately, Kengo Matsuda rushed out of the secret room without even ignoring the precious monster. In billowing smoke, Kengo Matsuda followed the path that had been planned before and rushed out directly from a hidden passage behind the villa. Where do you want to run to? But just as Matsuda Kengo ran out, a cold voice sounded behind him. It was as if the owner of the voice was leaning on his back and speaking in his ear. Kengo Matsuda's pupils shrank suddenly. Boom! Backhand punch. With a click, his punch seemed to hit the steel pillar directly, and a slight bone crack sounded instantly in his fist. Looking at the tall figure behind him, and the thick chest that was clearly punched by him without any damage, Matsuda Kengo's feet connected, and the whole person exploded backwards. But Fang Ping just stretched out his hand and instantly grabbed his head. I sensed the powerful force in the palm of the hand that grabbed my head. Kengo Matsuda shouted loudly in an instant, and the palm of his hand glowed with evil light and slapped Fang Ping again. Hearing his shout, Fang Ping's face instantly turned cold. People from Yamaguchi. Click. With a forceful finger, Kengo Matsuda's head was directly squeezed with a bang. Before it was over that his head was crushed, a powerful Yuan Huang gang shattered instantly, blasting Matsuda Kengo's body. In the blooming white light, a savage mouth devoured the life force in the flesh and blood frantically. Fang Ping's face was cold and his eyes narrowed. He originally thought that Wai Wenrui was just colluding with monsters, but he didn't expect to collude with people from Yamaguchi. Collusion with the people of Yamaguchi, using monsters to harm the people of the country. A tyranny flashed in Fang Ping's eyes. Damn you. What? Fang Ping stepped on Wai Wenrui's rotten palm. You actually colluded with the people of Yamaguchi, and you are cruel to the people of the country. You really can. Wai Wenrui screamed and howled, only to feel that the pain on his body was several times stronger in an instant. What? He even colluded with people from Yamaguchi. Hearing Fang Ping's words, the two young people in the Special Adjustment Department looked at Wai Wenrui instantly and turned even more hateful. At this time, a strange wave spread in the air. Fang Ping's eyes looked at the pile of ruins of villas behind him, and then at Wai Wenrui who was screaming at his feet. It's so cheap for you. With a snap, Fang Ping stomped on his head. After knowing that Wai Wenrui colluded with people from Yamaguchi to become a traitor, Fang Ping planned to continue torturing him. But aware of the strange fluctuations coming from the ruins behind, Fang Ping could only give up this plan. Although this Wai Wenrui can be handed over to the special mediation, the special mediation will definitely impose a severe punishment on him. But in order to prevent any accident from happening, let this Ai Rui survive. Fang Ping still killed him directly. Although this makes Wai Wenrui a lot less painful. But for Fang Ping, only the dead, even the ones he killed himself, are the safest. Hand him over to the special mediator. What should he do if an accident happens on the way? This traitor, Fang Ping will never give him any hope of surviving. The fierce and evil Yuanwang Gangsha quickly devoured all the vitality remaining in Wai Wenrui's body. At the same time, Fang Ping's palm clapped. Boom. In the ruins of the villa, a large hole was instantly blasted by a powerful Gangsha. With a swish sound, Fang Ping's figure disappeared in that big hole in an instant. As soon as he entered the big hole, Fang Ping saw a gel-like brain tissue suddenly flying towards him. At the same time, the eyeballs attached only to it sent out a strange wave. Those eyeballs seemed to be sucking something towards Fang Ping with their mouths open. Fang Ping, who felt the fluctuation of his spiritual consciousness, as if some kind of power was about to be sucked out by the strange fluctuations from those eyes, suddenly turned a ferocious face. Like smoking, don't you? The flame of the lantern method twitched slightly. An icy evil twisted malice instantly poured out from the black line in the center of the flame that looked like a crack in the abyss. Then this maliciousness was sucked into the eyes of the monster that resembled brain tissue by the strange fluctuations in the air. Like a broken crystal, the moment of maliciousness entering the body. The eyeballs on the monster's body exploded one by one in an instant. The gelatinous body began to twist. Pieces of ominous dirty fluff grew out of it. Then a mouth with a long tongue appeared among the dirty fluff. Pus flowed from the corners of the mouth, and those mouths began to frantically eat the flesh and blood beside them. The monster named Brain Mother's body trembled constantly, as if suffering endless pain. It's just that it doesn't have a mouth and can't make a sound at all. Erosion, dirty fluff, pus, mouth. In a strange and ominous distortion phenomenon, the aura of this monster instantly dimmed. It soon turned into a pool of foul-smelling pus. Looking at the whole process in front of him, Fang Ping's eyes flashed with surprise. Is this the malice that he radiated by using the burning lamp method? The power is so strong. Thinking of the strange aberrations on this monster just now, the ominous aura emanated from it. Fang Ping also had some heart palpitations. The ominous aura seemed to be incomparably mysterious, even stranger than the power of those monsters. Even if it only appeared for a moment, it dissipated in an instant as if it was neutralized by this world. But this moment was enough to impress Fang Ping. That mysterious, weird, heartfelt disgust, the feeling of resisting or even fear. What kind of breath is that? Fang Ping frowned slightly. Although this thing is to enhance his strength. But Fang Ping had a feeling that although that kind of thing was emanated by himself, with his current strength and body, it was best not to touch it. That kind of aura is a bit dangerous. It seems that if I spread maliciousness again in the future, I guess I should pay attention. Leaving the big hole under the ruins, Fang Ping walked directly to the two waiting above. The monsters here have been dealt with, so things like the previous ones shouldn't happen again. The unusual aura that both Wai Wenrui and the short man from Yamaguchi had on the body of the monster he killed just now. It seems that the whole thing is that the two used monsters to kill ordinary people behind the scenes to help them cultivate. Okay, remember to report the situation in detail after you go back, I'll go first. After Fang Ping finished talking to the two, he walked towards the distance. Yes, the two looked at Fang Ping's back and responded in awe. Hearing the voices of the two, Fang Ping raised his brows and his mind moved slightly. The poison in the two people's body was completely dormant and silent in an instant. Well, these two people should not be with Wei Wenrui. Jingdong Province, Fuliang County. This county is next to the sea, so the air is very humid. The clap of the sea ebbs and flows. Fang Ping stood quietly on the beach, looking at the endless sea in front of him. The sea breeze blew the noodles, with a smell of salty sea water. Fang Ping turned his eyes to look at an area in the distance on the right. The guards seem to be quite tight, and it seems that it is convenient to sneak in until the evening. Somewhere in the area he was looking at was where Fang Ping came this time. Fuliang Nuclear Power Plant. If Fang Ping can find the address on the internet, it must be a civilian nuclear power plant. The address of a military nuclear power plant is strictly confidential. As a civilian nuclear power plant, the Fuliang nuclear power plant will deliver a large amount of electricity to cities in several surrounding provinces at all times. The main purpose of his visit this time was to confirm whether the energy he absorbed in the Qingxin cave was nuclear radiation. Of course, if possible, he would also absorb some energy by the way to improve his martial arts. Although the Fuliang nuclear power plant is only a civilian nuclear power plant, it is also heavily guarded by armed police, so he needs to wait until night to sneak in. Time passed by Fang Ping's waiting. At this time, somewhere in Yamaguchi. Leader, the trace of the traitor Matsuda has been found. A man dressed in Yamaguchi was respectfully sitting in the room, reporting on a behemoth. I saw that giant, extremely fat and tall. Even if it was just sitting, it had a height of about 2 meters. Wearing a huge kimono, it looks like a mountain of fat piled up. Because there was too much fat on his face and it collapsed, his eyes seemed to have become a slit. But when he heard his words, the man who looked like a giant Roshan did not open his eyes. Where is he? The dull sound was like a roar, and the whole room seemed to be shaking. He should hide in the Sha country. Recently, our people found a monster incident in a place in the Sha country's Jingdong province. It is very similar to the recorded case of the Brain Mother's murder. It should be Matsuda using the Brain Mother to cultivate. Hearing this, the man made of fat finally opened his eyes. A red light flashed in the small eyes like a beast, full of violence. Bring him back, especially the Brain Mother he smuggled away. Hi. The man respectfully exited the room, and the Roshan closed his eyes again. A strong and terrifying inner chi swayed among the countless fat flesh. The turbulent fat on his body formed layers of fat waves. And at the same time, in a restricted area guarded by countless soldiers somewhere in the Sha kingdom. A tall mountain sits in the middle of this exclusion zone. Halfway down the mountain, there is a huge crack in the mountain. A cold aura continued to spread out from this crack. At the same time, along with the blowing air, there are also many strange and incomparably strange roars coming from the cracks. Under this mountain crack is a wide road, which has been built from a distance to the opening of this crack. At this time, countless wounded soldiers were being transported out of the cracks in the mountain. At the same time, many soldiers, who had been waiting outside for a long time, kept running in to fill the vacancies as the wounded were transported out. The breath of these soldiers is much stronger than that of ordinary people, not even weaker than that of ordinary warriors. The leaders of the soldiers are not weaker than those who have broken through the limits of the human body. Judging from the strength of this group of soldiers in this restricted area alone, this is definitely an incomparably terrifying force. In addition to lacking some top-level combat power, it is estimated that it will be able to push away many martial artists in the country. Even a top sect like Qingshu Mountain is no exception. The numbers are far too different. Moreover, these soldiers are iron-blooded and resolute, and at first glance, they were killed from the sea of blood. The terrifying suffocating aura alone is not comparable to the flower-like warriors in the greenhouses in those warrior sects. But even such a powerful force, judging from the wounded being transported out continuously, their casualties are still very heavy. At this time, a naked upper body was covered with all kinds of strange blood and scars, and his right arm was even broken, and the burly man came out of the crack. The terrifying evil spirit on his body seemed to make the surrounding air thicken. The rupture of the right arm continued to bleed out, but he did not care about it at all. The dragon and the tiger quickly walked towards a building next to the mountainside. While he moved, the blood in the place gradually became smaller, and at the same time, bunches of granulation sprouts grew from the flesh and blood and kept squirming. His broken right arm was growing rapidly. By the time he entered the building, his right arm had regrown. Director Lee Haeun rioted, and several imaginary level monsters rushed out. Our high-end combat power is insufficient. You must immediately recruit enough imaginary level masters to help suppress it. Quote. The big man said directly after dialing the phone. On the other end of the phone was a man with an equally sturdy body, exuding a scorching aura. He is the chief of the Special Mediation Headquarters, Lee Wanjong. He was also the one who finally decided to invest resources in Fang Ping when the senior management of the Special Mediation Office discussed how to treat Fang Ping. Hearing what this man said, Lee Wanjong frowned deeply and looked a little worried. General Wu, it's not impossible to assign the virtual level in the past, but I don't know if it can be slowed down. Recently, the Yuan Mozong group showed their heads again and attacked Qingshu Mountain. We are chasing them here. Hearing this, the suffocating big man also frowned. Nuos, it's not that I don't understand your difficulty, it's that the situation this time is more serious than before, and the few phantom-level monsters that rushed out must be dealt with by phantom-level people. Because of those phantom-level monsters, our warriors have already suffered a lot of casualties. I can't just watch this futile sacrifice. If those monsters break through the blockade, your special mediation will only be more troublesome. Hearing this, after thinking for a while, Lee Wanjong said in a deep voice. Okay, allow me to make arrangements. I will immediately send the masters of the virtual level over here. After hanging up the phone, Lee Wanjong immediately started arranging the recruits. At this time, a man just walked in with a face full of anger. This Du Tianong, the people under his command are all colluding with the people of Yamaguchi, he didn't even notice. Bright night. The dark clouds covered the moon, making the night look extraordinarily dark. At this time, outside the Fuliang nuclear power plant, a swift figure shot from a distance in an instant, easily climbed over the high-strength iron net, and then turned into an imperceptible afterimage and disappeared in an instant. A guarded armed policeman not far away looked towards this side suspiciously. Why did he feel that there was a strong wind blowing just now? But think about this as the seaside, isn't it normal to have wind? So he shook his head and didn't care. In the darkness, Fang Ping ran towards the location with the highest temperature. As for why, because the principle of nuclear power plants is also called boiling water. Soon, Fang Ping came to a building. Seeing that there were surveillance cameras in all corners of the building, Fang Ping frowned, then looked directly above the building. Compared with the building where there is no surveillance, it should be a good choice to go directly above. Controlling the muscles in the legs and feet squirming for a while. There was a slight hissing sound. His shoes were instantly squeezed by the squirming muscles. I saw Fang Ping's feet became very flat due to the squirming and pulling of the muscles, and then his legs were bent, and the whole person jumped directly. But not much sound happened. Soon, Fang Ping stopped in a sealed room. He felt it. Energy. Incomparably rich energy. Sensing the incomparably rich special energy in the house below, far beyond the Pure Heart Cave, Fang Ping's eyes flashed with intense excitement. Then, by means, Fang Ping directly entered the room below. Spent fuel storage room. Looking at a line of words marked on a warning icon posted on the wall next to him, a light flashed in Fang Ping's eyes. When searching for nuclear power plants before, he naturally searched for some relevant information. It is known that the so-called spent fuel is the used nuclear fuel, which is highly radioactive. Look at the many spent fuel bundles stored in a large pool in the room. He has now confirmed his previous guess. The special energy in the Qingshin cave that can suppress the residual power of the monster's flesh and blood is nuclear radiation. There are so many fuel bundles, I should not be found if I take a little. With a grasp of the palm, Yuan Huang Gangsha poured out. I saw 3 spent fuel bundles about the size of 2 fists and about 2 meters long, which were directly grabbed by Fang Ping from the bottom of the pool. The fuel bundle was wrapped by Fang Ping with Yuanwang Gangsha layer upon layer, and no nuclear radiation leaked out. Afterwards, taking those few fuel rod bundles, Takumi quickly left the nuclear power plant. In the sound of rushing sea water, Fang Ping took those fuel bundles to a secluded beach. It should be enough for now. Start ascension. Madly absorbing the radiation emitted by these fuel bundles, Jinping directly began to improve his own martial arts. There are 7 nuclear fuel rods in a large fuel bundle, AJBC. Fang Ping secretly took out 3 fuel rods, that is, 21 fuel rods. But these 21 fuel rods, in Fang Ping's induction, possessed far more energy than Qingxin Cave. Not to mention the energy in the Fel energy inhibitor of those profound products he used before. An increasingly powerful aura hangs over this remote sandy beach. 3 hours later, there were 2 lights shining like headlights in the dark sandy beach. That's Fang Ping's gaze. Felt it. A dull thunderous voice sounded on the beach. The shackles of the realm are already at hand. Half an hour later, Fang Ping, who had recovered his breath, returned to the nuclear power plant with the 3 fuel bundles whose radiation had been completely absorbed. After putting the 3 fuel rods back, 10 rod bundles were brought out again. Because he already felt that after the promotion just now, he was very close to the shackles of that realm. Once again, it will shoot and break. This time, in order to prevent himself from being discovered when he broke through the shackles of the realm. Fang Ping swam all the way to a deserted island not far from Fuliang County. Immediately afterwards, Fang Ping looked at the evil god modifier with excitement in his eyes. Prison Dragon Kung Fu, upgrade. Yuanwang Gangsha, mention it. At this time, the roof of a hotel building with dozens of floors in Haichuan. A woman in ragged clothes, covered in all kinds of signs of abuse, staggered to the edge of the roof. His face was swollen high, full of slap marks, and there were many tooth marks under his shoulders and neck. Both legs were completely stained red by the blood flowing down. Especially the blood that flows down is also mixed with some disgusting descendant liquid. His face was sluggish, and his eyes were already red and even swollen from crying. At this moment, she didn't seem to feel the pain at all. Coming to the railing on the edge of the roof, those eyes full of despair and hatred looked down at the ground below. Seeing that there were still people walking below, she waited for a while. She didn't want to jump off and hit other people. Looking at the streets in the distance that are still full of traffic and bright lights. Tears welled up in her eyes, and the tears ran down her face with the disgusting fluid on her face. And this time in the stairs of this hotel building. Chu Qingqing closed her eyes slightly, and a tiny flesh and blood gap opened under the eyes on the left side of her face. Several black lines with sharp-edged mouthparts drilled out of the flesh and blood gap and twisted in the air, as if sensing something. Such a breath of despair, it seems to be another person who feels extreme despair. The next moment, Chu Qingqing whispered softly. Those black lines also retracted into the flesh and blood gap in an instant. In the past, Chu Qingqing was very cheerful and had a warm personality, so she was recognized by so many classmates when she was the monitor. But at this time, Chu Qingqing's temperament has become a little cold. Following that desperate breath, she quickly ran towards the roof. On the top of the building, after seeing that there were no pedestrians on the ground below, the incomparably miserable woman climbed over the railing. Just as she was about to jump down against the high wind in the night sky, a voice suddenly came from behind her. "Are you willing to jump like this?" The woman was stunned for a moment, turned her head to look, and saw Chu Qingqing looking at her calmly. It was just that when Chu Qingqing saw this woman's appearance at this time, a hint of pity flashed in her somewhat indifferent eyes. "You are. Forget it, it doesn't matter, I'm going to jump anyway, don't come here, you can't stop me," the woman said softly with a smile that was clear but full of endless bitterness and despair. Saying that, she was about to let go. "I don't know what happened to you, but I was as desperate as you not long ago. You just jumped down like this, are you really willing? I have now gained a new life and have the power to reject despair, how about you? If you want to be like me, have the ability to reject despair, and be reborn in nirvana, you still choose to jump like this." Chu Qingqing looked at the woman calmly and said, "What are you talking about? The woman looked at Chu Qingqing in surprise. I'm talking about this. Chu Qingqing smiled lightly, and the position below the eyes split directly, and a pair of eyes full of strange black lines appeared. A black line flew out of those eyes and swayed in the air. The sharp mouthparts at the front of the black line danced towards the woman in unison, as if absorbing the despair in her. Do you want to have this kind of power to resist despair? When ordinary people see this, I am afraid that most of them will faint from fright. But at this time, when the woman saw this scene, there was hope in her eyes. In those eyes full of despair, there was a glimmer of hope again. Resist despair and rebirth in nirvana. The woman suddenly laughed, turned back from the railing, and walked over to meet the many strange black lines flying out of Chu Qingqing's eyes. The next moment, the numerous black lines plunged into the woman's body. A deserted island off the coast of Fuliang County. There was some light in the sky. Thump thump. The heartbeat sounded like a drum on the deserted island. A violent aura enveloped most of the deserted island. The powerful momentum rose into the sky, swept the wind and clouds, and became stronger and stronger, reaching a certain critical point. Behind a small hill, I saw a monstrous figure that was nearly 3 meters tall and stood quietly. A muscular mask with a strange black mark and a huge and sharp horn on its forehead. The whole body is covered with dark and icy dragon scales, and there are bursts of flames flowing in the gaps between the dragon scales, but exuding a cold breath. Because of these flames and dragon scales, the evil eye King Kong on his chest also became more evil at this time, as if it would climb out of Fang Ping's chest at any time. The sturdy arms, the row behind the elbows, and the sharp inverted blades gradually become smaller, and the hands are like the claws of the ancient Tyrannosaurus Rex. Thick and powerful, yet with a bit of a ferocious beauty. The muscles on the shoulders bulge high above the top of the head, flat, as if wearing a pair of thick shoulder armor and heavy shields. The muscles behind the chew knot are shaped like a ghost face, and the stretched latissimus dorsi is like a pair of fleshy wings. A row of incomparably sharp spikes ran down the spine, and at the tail vertebra was a ferocious giant tail with spikes that swayed continuously. The strong and powerful thighs are like 2 thick steel pillars deeply sunk into the ground beneath their feet. Muscle bulges at the knees formed 2 faces that seemed to contort and howl. The whole looks like a ferocious demon that ravages the world. A heavy and oppressive breath filled the surroundings. Even the space around this figure is slightly distorted, as if some can't bear the terrifying power in this body. Swish! Suddenly, those tightly closed eyes instantly opened, and a strange and dazzling white light shot out of them instantly. Break me! The fierce and vicious voice of the urn came from his mouth. In the open mouth, you can see the mouth full of jagged, incomparably sharp serrations. And along with his voice, the aura on his body that had been raised to a certain critical point instantly stirred. With a puff, it seemed as if something had been broken. The momentum suddenly soared again, and a sound like the sound of twisting steel bars came from his body. Strength. Feeling the terrifying power in his body at this time, Fang Ping's face was full of excitement and frenzy. My power is inexhaustible. With a jerk of his arms, Fang Ping raised his head and roared with laughter. Completely breaking the shackles of the realm that he felt, Fang Ping instantly felt that his strength had completely entered a whole new world. At this moment, in his eyes, the whole world in front of him seemed to become clearer. But because it was clearer, the world in his eyes had another blurry shadow. It was as if the world was only the surface, but beneath this surface, there was still a vague shadow. Hiss! The sharp claws surging with terrifying power suddenly grabbed in front of him. A crack appeared in the space in front of him in an instant, and behind the crack was a gray cloud, and the mysterious space in the distance could not be seen at all. And this is also the shadow under the surface of the world that he just saw. But looking at this familiar space, Fang Ping's eyes were wide open. It was the space where the weird monster that had always coveted Fang Ping and wanted to eat him. Feeling the faint malice that still existed in the dark, Fang Ping's mouth twitched slightly. I said, next time I see you, I'll be looking for you. I'll find yours soon. Although his strength was improved at the beginning, he almost got rid of the threat of monsters. But the monster had tortured him for so long, how could he possibly let it go? Relying on the faint malice that still existed, he would surely find it. At that time, he will crush it inch by inch, and then let the evil eye Vajra eat it. Looking at the space crack in front of him, it has already begun to recover quickly. After Fang Ping squinted his eyes, he suddenly stretched out a finger, from the space crack into the gray mysterious space. After a few seconds, Fang Ping frowned slightly. After more than 10 seconds, his face changed instantly, and he pulled his fingers back directly. I saw that on his sturdy finger, the sharp claw in the front section was broken in half, and it was tattered, as if it had been corroded by some kind of force. The fingers covered with fine black scales also became bloody at this time. As soon as he put his finger in, he felt a strange force corroding his finger. After that, there seemed to be a gust of wind blowing, and he immediately retracted his fingers when he felt the danger. But even so, the fingers that were gently blown by the wind still turned into the bloody appearance they are now. What the hell is this mysterious space? It's so dangerous. Watching the bloody fingers heal quickly, Fang Ping frowned deeply. Could it be that it is difficult for the monster to come to this world, and it is also difficult for him to enter this mysterious space? Thinking of this, Fang Ping's face sank. Host: Fang Ping. Martial arts: Yulong Sanshi, 2nd layer, Prison Dragon Exercise, 3rd layer, Yuanwang Gangsha, 3rd layer, Dongshuan Tianxin Thunder Dafa, 2nd layer, Burning Lamp Method complete, Sky Poison Art, 3rd floor. Origin: 0. Looking at the martial arts on the Cthulhu modifier, Fang Ping's face flashed a ferocious look. Even if you can't enter now, when you get stronger, you will definitely be able to. You can't escape. The next moment, with a thought, the huge figure that was almost 3 meters tall gradually shrank. Black Abyss. The 10 nuclear fuel rods whose radiant energy had been completely absorbed by themselves were quietly put back into the nuclear power plant. Fang Ping suddenly received a call from someone who claimed to be the head of the Special Mediation Headquarters, from Siji Wanzhong. Go to a place called Heiyuan by yourself. It's just that Fang Ping hung up the phone before he could finish his words. You said that you were the chief of the Special Mediation Headquarters, right? I also said that I was Qin Shi Huang. How come no one gave me money? What's more, what if you were? After confirming that he can absorb nuclear radiation energy, Fang Ping doesn't want to go anywhere now, he just wants to grow up quietly. Thinking that there are so many nuclear power plants in the Sha Kingdom. And there is so much energy in these nuclear power plants waiting to be absorbed by themselves. Just thinking about it made Fang Ping excited. What are you going to do? Is it uncomfortable to lie down? Beeping. In the headquarters of the Special Mediation Office, Li Wanzhong looked at the mobile phone in his hand with a stunned expression. He hung up. He actually hung up on my phone. The corners of Li Wanzhong's mouth trembled slightly, and even the person at the top didn't dare to hang up his phone easily. This Fang Ping, he didn't even finish his words, he just hung up. Fang Ping, Li Wanzhong said in a low voice, gnashing his teeth. The hot aura that diffused from his body seemed to burst a little. He feels very depressed and aggrieved now. It's as if someone hit you and then ran away, you still can't hit him. So pissed. What's wrong? Seeing Li Wanzhong's expression at this time, the man standing next to him asked in surprise. Hearing this person's question, Li Wanzhong took a deep breath and calmed down. But TM is still very angry. This Fang Ping, before I finished speaking, he just hung up the phone. Hearing this, the person next to him was stunned for a moment, and then burst into laughter. Ha ha ha, I never thought you would have today. Hearing this man's laughter, Li Wanzhong became even more depressed. Okay, stop laughing. The other virtual masters, I have almost made arrangements, you should contact them in time and send them to Heiyuan. Dare to hang up my phone, I'll go find him in person now, and also meet this amazing little genius by the way. Hearing this, the man next to him stopped laughing and was a little surprised. As for it, although it's a little inconvenient, it's okay to arrange for someone else to go there. There's no need for you to find him in person, right? Li Wanzhong shook his head. Although Fang Ping's strength is already at the virtual level, he has not yet broken through the virtual level. Although the situation in Heiyuan is dangerous, with the military generals and those imaginary ranks, the danger should not be great. If he can enter the Black Abyss to sharpen it, it will definitely be of great help for him to break through the virtual level. Hearing Li Wanzhong's words, the man was even more surprised. Are you so optimistic about him and so interested in him? Li Wanzhong shook his head again, frowning slightly. It's not that you don't care, you didn't receive the report song from Weishu Mountain. Qingshu Mountain Tianxin lineage, that is, the people in the boxing gym where Fang Ping was before, all have unknown toxins in their bodies. Yes, it is the kind of special toxins that the research institute was studying before. Because the practice of Tianxin Yimai is the most dependent on the world, it is most sensitive to changes in the external environment. Now that strange toxins have suddenly appeared in their bodies, which means that the environment of the world may have changed in some way. In addition to the recent monsters in the Black Abyss, the frequency of riots is getting higher and higher, this time even a few virtual monsters directly rushed out. In addition to the fact that the rubbish of Yuan Mozong has come out again recently. Don't you feel like a storm is about to come with these kinds of events? Li Wanzhong frowned and said, in case I have started to feel a sense of urgency recently, so I try to strengthen our strength as much as possible to better deal with some kind of crisis that may occur in the future. Fang Ping's current strength is already at the virtual level. Once he breaks through, his strength is definitely not weak among the virtual level. With such a top-level combat power, if some kind of crisis really occurs, we can be more calm. Hearing Li Wanzhong's remarks, the man was also a little bit stunned. Okay, then you go to Fang Ping, I'll take care of other things. At this time, on the remote beach in Fuliang County by the sea, Fang Ping is experimenting with his newfound abilities. I saw his thoughts move, and his body gradually floated up. There was still shaking at first, but it quickly stabilized. Then Fang Ping flew directly on the beach. Humans are always eager to conquer everything, and the sky is naturally among them. Hence the advent of the plane. But the feeling of flying freely in the air is completely incomparable to flying in an airplane. Fang Ping flew quickly on the beach, his face full of excitement. Like a little kid who found a new toy. After this strength improvement, he naturally has the ability to fly. It's like when you eat, you will naturally open your mouth, and when you walk, you will naturally open your legs. It's already an instinct. This ability to fly seems to have become his instinct at this time. As soon as the thought moved, it flew directly. When he fought with Yuan Zong of the Yuan family, and Yunangsen, he was surprised that they were able to stand in the air. Unexpectedly, after this strength breakthrough, he also has this ability. However, he did not dare to fly too high at this time, only about 2 meters away from the ground. Flying too high, he was afraid of being detected by Sha Guo's radar. At this moment, his cell phone rang suddenly. Taking it out, Fang Ping raised his brows slightly in doubt. Why did Yunangsen call himself? Half an hour later, Ping came to the box of a hotel in Fuliang County. At this time, a burly man was sitting in the box, exuding a hot breath. Feeling the faint sense of threat on this person, Fang Ping's eyes flashed, and he asked uncertainly. Director-in-Chief. Well, come in and have something to eat together. Why? Li Wanzhong nodded and said. At this time, the table in the box was already full of dishes. Hee, I don't know what the chief of the department has come to find me. I also received a call from a liar before saying that I am you, which is outrageous. Sitting down opposite Li Wanzhong, Fang Ping's face was full of innocence, completely in line with his identity as a pure-hearted boy and a prospective college student. Although his appearance is somewhat inconsistent with his tall and sturdy figure at this time. As expected, he is the head of all special mediation offices in the entire Sha Kingdom. In addition to his very strong body, his aura of being in a high position, at the moment he saw just now, really made Fang Ping, a plain-headed commoner, feel guilty for a while. Looking at Fang Ping's foolish look and words, Li Wanzhong's mouth twitched. If I remember correctly, the liar you mentioned should be me. Ha, let me just say, which liar dares to pretend to be you? It turns out it's really you. If I had known, I would never have hung up on you. Fang Ping patted his thigh and said suddenly. Seeing Fang Ping like this, Li Wanzhong's mouth twitched again, and 10,000 question marks appeared in his heart. Is this the moody, tyrannical, and murderous Fang Ping you're talking about? I'm afraid this is fake, right? Inside the box. While eating, the two chatted. Black Abyss, don't go. But when talking about going to Heiyuan, Fang Ping shook his head and refused. Just now, Li Wanzhong had already told him about Heiyuan's situation. It seems to be a meeting point between that mysterious gray space and this world. In Li Wanzhong's sky, that space is called the virtual world. No one knows how big the virtual world is. What is known so far is that there are often monsters that are even weirder and more powerful than virtual level monsters in the virtual world, which are called virtual spirits. Because Heiyuan is the intersection of the virtual world and this world, there are often a large number of powerful monsters rushing out of it. This time, the riot of monsters in the Black Abyss has produced several virtual monsters. Originally, the Sha Kingdom had an army stationed in Heiyuan all year round, and the collective combat capability of the army was much stronger than those of the sect warriors. But in terms of top-level combat power such as the virtual level, the army is still somewhat lacking. Therefore, this time, Li Wanzhong will select some masters of the virtual level to help the Heiyuan army suppress the monster riot. However, Fang Ping directly refused. Heiyuan is the place where the virtual world intersects. Although Li Wanzhong can't say it, it will not be dangerous to virtual level strength. But what if? In case there is an accident. Although it's not a good thing to say. But now he is honest, quietly absorbing nuclear radiation here, how comfortable it is to improve his strength. There is no danger at all. Why take the risk to go to the Black Abyss? Director-in-Chief, I remember that when I joined the Special Mediation Office, it was written in the booklet that I had the right to refuse assignments, right? Fang Ping looked at Li Wanzhong and asked. That's right, but why do you want to go to the Heiyuan so much? Going to the Heiyuan to experience it will definitely benefit your cultivation, and even help you better break through to the virtual level. I've been cultivating by myself, and if I haven't experienced tempering, I'll be like a flower in a greenhouse that can't stand the real wind and sun. Li Wanzhong had a headache. Obviously he was thinking of him, but Fang Ping was reluctant to go no matter what. The flowers in the greenhouse are very good, and who said that I haven't experienced tempering? You see, I have dealt with so many monster incidents before, isn't this tempered enough? Fang Ping pouted and said, he is not going anyway, whoever likes to go will go. Besides, Director General, I'm still a child. I'm still a student, I'm going to college soon, and I think the most important thing now is to study hard. Originally wanted to say that he was still a child, but after all, he was not so thick-skinned, so Fang Ping only said that he was a student. Besides, he wasn't wrong. He has just finished the college entrance examination and will go to university after that. Compared with those ordinary prospective college students, apart from being a little taller and stronger, he actually doesn't look any different. Hearing Fang Ping's words, Li Wan only felt the muscles on his face twitch. Your student? Which student? Well, this guy is really a student. Fang Ping, I really don't mean to harm you. Going to Heiyuan to practice is really good for your strength. Li Wanzhong persuaded bitterly. If it weren't for the urgency of trying to enhance the strength of the country because of the storm to come. In addition, I really want the genius of Fang Ping to develop better and not be buried. He wouldn't try to persuade Fang Ping like an old mother. Director, in fact, I didn't say it before. Ever since the battle with the Yuan family, I have always felt that I need to settle down for a while. Although my current strength is not bad, in fact, I feel that my foundation and heritage are still too thin and a little unstable. I feel that I need a period of time to settle down, consolidate my strength foundation, and let my heritage become deeper. Fang Ping sighed and said to Li Wanzhong. Hearing this, Li Wanzhong's mouth twitched. Well, in order not to go to Heiyuan, you really can say anything. In the realm of breaking the limit twice, with the strength of the virtual level, he can even completely kill Yuan Zong, a person who is not weaker than the virtual level in a short time. You told me that your foundation is not stable and your foundation is not thick. After thinking hard for a while, Li Wanzhong gritted his teeth and said again. As long as you promise to go to Heiyuan to help suppress the monster riot, after you come back, I will give you an ethereal object as a reward for completing the task. W plus WBW at. Hearing this, Fang Ping froze with surprise. Absurd. What is that? Something similar to the flesh and blood of monsters, but the virtual objects are part of the extremely dangerous virtual bodies in the virtual world. Many monsters only get stronger and stronger after they get a virtual object by chance. Anyway, this kind of thing can make you practice faster, and at the same time make your strength stronger. It is a very precious treasure. Li Wanzhong looked at Fang Ping and explained. Hearing this, Fang Ping raised his brows. Director, do you have any virtual objects with you now? Can you show me? Seeing that Fang Ping's tone seemed a little loose, Li Wanzhong also stood up and left his clothes. A finger swiped next to his left chest and heart, and a wound suddenly appeared. I saw Li Wanzhong's body. Beside his own heart, there was a strange heart beating. It was shaped like a bug, and its body was flushed red, like a flame burning, and several pairs of claws tightly grasped Li Wanzhong's heart. Beat with the beat of that heart. Every beat of this peculiar heart, a hot and bursting anger melted directly into Li Wanzhong's heart. Seeing this scene, Fang Ping's eyes narrowed instantly. Turns out it's a phantom. The flesh and blood laceration on his chest healed, and Li Wanzhong pulled up his clothes and looked at Fang Ping. My heart of red flame is a virtual object, which can greatly enhance my strength and cultivation speed. Generally speaking, avatars are very important things for every owner. It will never show anyone easily. One of the reasons why Li Wanzhong showed Fang Ping was because he felt that Fang Ping would not see a rabbit but not a hawk. The second is because he was absolutely sure that Fang Ping could be killed instantly. Although Fang Ping killed Yuan Zong himself used the power of blood to achieve the virtual level in a short time. In Li Wanzhong's view, such an imaginary level is completely unworthy of mention. He was able to become the chief of the Special Mediation Office but he did so by his connections and his terrifying strength. Even in the virtual level, his strength is determined to be the top group of people. If Fang Ping really dared to have any crooked thoughts, he could crush Fang Ping in an instant. As for the last reason, as the chief director of the Special Mediation Office, how could he only have this virtual object? Director-in-Chief, I still think it's better for me to settle down on my own. Fang Ping has already seen that this so-called virtual object is probably the thing that allows him to obtain origin quality. But judging from Li Wanzhong's heart and his previous experience in obtaining origin quality, this kind of virtual object should be able to provide himself with 5 or 6 points of source quality. Although he used up his origin quality in the Qingxin cave before, now is the time when he needs it. But because the realm of the martial arts such as the prison dragon kung fu has not been improved to perfection, he is not so anxious to need the source quality. Going to Heiyuan for a few origin quality seems to be a bit inconvenient. It's just that as soon as his voice fell, Li Wanzhong gritted his teeth again and said, 2 virtual objects. Boom. Fang Ping slammed the table and stood up. To be honest, Chief, I have always felt that serving the motherland is the obligation of every Sha people. If there is a bit of heat and a bit of light, if there is no torch in the future, then I will be the only light. Suppress the Heiyuan demonic chaos, who is it for me? Looking at Fang Ping's arrogant and dignified face, he was solemn, as if he was not afraid of any difficulties and dangers. Li Wanzhong stared blankly. Special Commission Headquarters. It came back very quickly. You persuaded Fang Ping to go to Heiyuan. Seeing Li Wanzhong walk in, the man who was helping Li Wanzhong with Special Mediation Affairs asked with a smile. Convinced, Li Wanzhong said dully. Seeing Li Wanzhong's depressed expression, the man raised his brows. Since you're convinced, why doesn't your expression change much from before? Li Wanzhong sat down on his office chair. Let them reanalyze Fang Ping's character right away. What a tyrannical character and too much murder. This guy is a helpless little bastard. Li Wanzhong said angrily. It's okay to let them reanalyze. Why are you more depressed than before you went to see Fang Ping, and where did you say Fang Ping was a jerk? The man asked in surprise. Li Wanzhong sighed deeply and looked at him. Do you know how I persuaded him to go to Heiyuan? I used 2 virtual objects as a quest reward, and he agreed to go. Hearing this, the man was shocked. You are so willing, you really don't know how expensive rice, oil and salt are. No, you are the chief of the department, you should be very clear that the virtual objects in the Special Adjustment Department are not very full. That's right. Hearing this, Li Wanzhong became even more angry. That little bastard, he doesn't see rabbits at all and doesn't play eagles at all. No matter what I say, he just won't go. I said going to Heiyuan to experience, it's good for him. What he said that his foundation is not stable, and it takes time to settle. It wasn't until I talked about the fictitious object that he was a little relieved. TM, who did the character analysis for him before, saying that the character was tyrannical, and he was punished for this month's salary. The more Li Wanzhong thought about it, the more depressed he became. I have never seen many people as cheeky as him. Seeing Li Wanzhong's depressed expression, the man couldn't help but want to laugh. Okay, it seems that you are cultivating him as a confidant and love will be so generous. What love, General? I don't agree with him. If I stay with him for a long time, I really feel that I will lose a few years of my life. Li Wanzhong sighed, but at this moment, his eyes suddenly lit up. Yes, you can help me contact General Wu immediately. The man looked at Li Wanzhong's expression, and while calling Heiyuan, he asked curiously, what are you going to do here? A sneer appeared on Li Wanzhong's face. HMPH, my things are not so easy to take. I took 2 of my virtual objects, I won't wear a layer of skin off them this time, I'm sorry for those 2 pieces. While speaking, Li Wanzhong took the phone from the man's hand. Hey, General Wu, yes, I'm Li Wanzhong. It's just that in the past virtual level, there is a person named Fang Ping, you helped me to grind him well. This kid has good talent and good strength, but his foundation is a little unstable, and his background is not thick enough. Originally, I was going to let it settle for a while. Isn't this where you need support? I'll transfer him to you, and you can help me polish it. By the way, don't grind it too hard, it will wear him down, and I'm still going to reuse him here. Okay, then I'll trouble you. Hearing what Li Wanzhong said to the general in Heiyuan, the person next to him immediately gave Li Wanzhong a thumbs up. You're ruthless. If you let that martial arts head grind Fang Ping for you, he might take it seriously. Hearing this, Li Shiti smiled. Bao Zhanfang came out of sharpening. Although the martial arts head is ruthless, he still knows his proportions and will not really put Fang Ping in danger. Maybe after this devil's tempering, Fang Ping will really be promoted to the virtual level. WWW. Clack clack. The deafening sound of the propeller resounded around. Fang Ping sat in a helicopter, staring at the scene below. Below is a vast expanse of mountainous terrain with little sign of life other than a broad road. Taking Li Wanzhong's phantom artifact heart as a standard, he should be able to obtain 5 to 6 essentia for 1 phantom artifact. 2 pieces are the source quality of the early 10 o'clock. For so many source qualities, the risk of getting rich is worth it. Besides, no one has stipulated what he must do this time. He just behaved ordinary, just like everyone else, he didn't hold back, he didn't act like a bird, he was in the middle of the water, and he didn't do anything. After going back, you can have 2 virtual objects, which is very worthwhile. Thinking of this, a smile appeared on Fang Ping's face. Soon, the helicopter landed in front of a tall mountain. After getting off the helicopter, I looked at the large group of soldiers in the distance who were ready to go, like steel poured, and their bodies were full of evil spirits. Look at the wounded who are continuously being transported from the cracks in the middle of the mountain in front. Fang Ping's mood sank slightly, and the smile just now disappeared. He could be in a good mood along the way, but when he got here, when he really saw these soldiers, he couldn't help but respect these bloody warriors. Where did the years come from? It's just that someone is carrying the load for you. Sha Kingdom is now in a stable order and a prosperous society, mostly because people like these soldiers are silently guarding. Otherwise, not to mention other things, just the monsters in the Black Abyss rushed out, and the Sha Kingdom would never be as stable as it is now. Following a soldier, Fang Ping soon saw the martial demon head Li Wanzhong spoke of. The tall body full of scars, and even stained with the blood of various monsters, spreads unscrupulously with a violent evil spirit. Those blood-filled eyes made him look like a demon with red eyes. Report to General, Fang Ping has been brought here. The soldier reported in a strong voice. You are Fang Ping. Wu Wudi first waved at the soldier, and after letting him go back, he looked at Fang Ping and asked. Yes, General. Fang Ping looked at the suffocating general and replied in a deep voice. A look of fear and solemnity flashed in his eyes. The man in front of him, called the general, gave him a stronger sense of threat than Li Wanzhong. With his current strength in normal human form, it would be difficult to kill him. It is estimated that at most, it can only rely on the return of life and continue to recover from the injury to defeat the serious injury of the opponent. So strong. Fang Ping stared at the most powerful person in front of him, and kept sighing in his heart. Outside the mountain crack, Wu Wudi's bloodshot eyes stared at Fang Ping. A powerful aura mixed with that fierce and boundless suffocating aura directly pressed down on Fang Ping's body. Did you know that when you arrived here, it was already a lot late for the others? A figure much taller than Fang Ping, looking down at Fang Ping, asked with a hint of scolding. Hearing this, looking at the expression of the person in front of him, Zhang Ping did not wrinkle slightly. I don't seem to have met this person before, not even face to face, let alone a grudge. Then why did he feel that the general in front of him seemed to have a bad attitude towards him? Could it be that there are relatives and friends among the people I killed before? Although a series of thoughts flashed in his mind, on the surface Fang Ping answered his question honestly, neither humble nor arrogant. Report to General, I don't know. Hearing Fang Ping's answer, Wu Wudi was stunned, and the powerful aura was also stunned. Fang Ping's honest answer is a bit confusing for him. Shouldn't normal people apologize or explain the reason for being late? You give me a don't know. But Fang Ping answered his questions honestly, which made him uncomfortable. There is no excuse for wanting to get angry and yell at him. Because people really don't know. He opened his mouth, but he didn't know what to say. In the end, Wu Wudi could only say depressedly, "Let's go, follow me into the black abyss." Then Fang Ping followed Wu Wudi to the crack in the middle of the mountain. At this time, Wu Wudi, who was walking in front of Fang Ping, was also thinking about Fang Ping. Does that guy Li Wanzhong want me to grind this Fang Ping? When I'm in the black abyss, facing those rioting monsters, I'll practice him well. This guy's temperament is really... Thinking of this, Wu Wudi's thoughts got stuck again. The two had just met, and judging from the meeting just now, he really didn't find anything wrong with Fang Ping's character. Everything is in order, not outstanding, nor ordinary. What he asked, people answered his questions very honestly. Thinking of this, Wu Wudi suddenly became even more depressed. It seems that there is no problem, why are you so suffocated? The two entered the depths of the mountain crack all the way. What then appeared in front of Fang Ping's eyes was an even larger crack under his feet. The crack is several meters wide, and the bottom of the crack is pitch black. There are many roars of messy monsters and the sound of bombardment from time to time coming from the pitch black under the crack. Above the crack, on the inner wall of the surrounding mountain, there are many crystals that Fang Ping had seen. The rippling and spreading magic suppressing field suppressed the countless surging demonic chi in the darkness below the crack, unable to come up. What? Scared, looking at the darkness that kept going down Fang Ping's crack, Wu Wudi asked with a corner of his mouth. Report to General, don't be afraid. Fang Ping answered loudly. Instead he is a little excited now. Listening to the roar of the monsters coming from that sound, there must be a lot of monsters under this crack. Maybe this time, he will be able to take this opportunity to feed the countless empty acupuncture points in his body. You must know that since the dragon elephant did not move to swallow the Zhou Tian secret method, most of the acupoints and mouths in his body are still in a state of incomparable hunger. Although he also experienced several battles, he also devoured the vitality of many monsters and enemies. But his body is too strong, and the vitality is simply not enough for him to eat. When Wu Wudi next to him heard Fang Ping's answer, he gritted his teeth again. It was the same feeling just now. Obviously he answered his own answer honestly, but listening to his rational and strong answer made him feel very aggrieved and depressed. It made people feel itchy and wanted to beat him up. Don't be afraid then, come down with me. AJDF, Wu Wudi said angrily. The two then landed on a proposed elevator. As it went deeper into the crack, the surroundings began to get darker and darker. The devilish chi that was surging around began to become more and more intense. At the same time, the distance on both sides of the crack also began to become larger and larger. It was as if the two of them had really entered a dark abyss. This is the origin of the name Heiyuan. As he continued to descend, Fang Ping could see that there were other simple elevators around, pulling up the bodies of many seriously wounded and soldiers. In the end, almost half an hour later, the two finally reached the bottom of the black abyss. At this time, there were many searchlights, warning lights, and other lights illuminating the surroundings, and it was no longer as dark as the surrounding area. There were bursts of screams and roars coming from afar. Fang Ping followed the direction from which the voice came from. I saw that in front of them, the bottom of this black abyss turned out to be a place like a huge plain. In the middle of the plain stands a steel great wall with a height of dozens of meters and a height of more than 10 meters. The sound of bombing, shouting and roaring came from the other side of the great steel wall. On this side of the great steel wall, there are very busy camps everywhere. The wounded were transported, the ammunition and weapons were transported, and there were soldiers who rushed out of the great wall to replace the wounded. The smell of gunpowder, blood, and the stench of monster flesh filled the air of the entire Heian plain. But in those airs, there was more cruelty and death. Fang Ping watched everything in the distance silently. Naturally, he has seen dead people, and even killed a lot of people, and he is not uncommon to see extremely disgusting corpses tortured by his toxins. But all that was completely different from the scene before him. It was a fight before him. No, it was a fight. And all of this is the real battle, and the real war. Boom. At this moment, countless dazzling white lights instantly bloomed on the side of the great steel wall. Then a huge explosion roar resounded throughout the black abyss. A huge white sun appeared on that side of the great steel wall. Seeing the familiar white sun, Fang Ping's eyes narrowed. Special light bomb. However, when Fang Ping was watching, Wu Wudi, who was beside him, had already soared into the air, flying towards the position where the white sun was rising at an extremely high speed. There's a situation over there, I'll go first, and you'll follow right away. Wu Wudi's residual voice sounded in the air. Hearing his words, Fang Ping's eyes sank, and his feet exploded. The whole person jumped high at a terrifying speed in an instant, jumping, and rushing towards the direction Wu Wudi flew at a speed not slower than Wu Wudi. If the steel Great Wall looks normal, outside the Great Wall of Steel, it looked extremely unusual. Incomparably dark red, it even became very muddy and sticky earth, as if countless trampled corpses and flesh and blood were piled up. Many warriors and soldiers are more fighting those strange monsters in the distance. After several lines of defense screening, the monsters that rush to the vicinity will be killed by the weapons equipped on the steel Great Wall and the guards on the Great Wall. Many soldiers. At this time, in the distance, the huge white sun gradually dissipated, and I saw more than a dozen figures fighting madly in the sky. In a series of powerful collisions, the fierce fighting left all the monsters and soldiers below and all around to a farther place. Boom! Wu Wudi flew quickly from the air, and his tall and sturdy figure had already swelled and swelled again when his fist was raised. It was as if a giant had descended, and the huge fist hit the hideous monster in those figures like a meteor. With a bang, the monster's body exploded instantly and flew out. But neither the crazily colliding figures in the air nor the soldiers around them were distracted by the appearance of Wu Wudi. They don't dare to be distracted in the battle with monsters, because maybe that moment of distraction will directly kill them. Numerous soldiers and monsters seemed to collide with each other like two huge torrents, constantly fighting. Puff! At this time, a figure in the air was suddenly hit by a monster that looked like a praying mantis, but even more ferocious, and instantly fell to the ground with blood spurting. The monster let out a strange laugh in an instant, and with a ferocious figure flashed, it rushed directly to the man on the ground. Peng Liang, a big man who was relatively close to this person in the air next to him, saw this scene, and instantly shouted in worry. He wanted to save the man, but the monster opposite him instantly accelerated its attack, forcing him to defend, unable to escape. Looking at the monster in the air, the man named Peng Liang gritted his teeth, agitated his inner anger, and wanted to attack. But the next moment, a large amount of blood spurted out from the wound on his chest instantly, and the forces belonging to the monsters madly eroded his body. Not only did the injury on his body not recover at all, it even made his injury worse. As I said before, warriors who break through the limits of the human body time and time again are actually approaching monsters. So the same attack, for the warrior, the damage will be heavier. Because after all, they just tend to monsters, not waste. Except for those warriors with special inner chi, ordinary warriors can only restrain the recovery of monsters from their own injuries with the aid of special light bombs. But the demonic energy of the monsters can easily erode their bodies and prevent their injuries from recovering. Even if you don't pay attention, it may make these warriors demonized. After all, there is a part of the power of monster flesh and blood that remains in their bodies. Cough. Peng Liang, whose face was pale and his breath became weaker, spat out a mouthful of blood. Looking at the monster that was already close at hand, and was about to tear him apart. A look of despair flashed in his eyes. It seems that my life is not long. Malfunction and die. The ferocious face of the monster continued to enlarge in front of Peng Liang's eyes, and the tone of his voice was a bit strange, but he could clearly hear the voice of death from the monster's mouth. A madness flashed in Peng Liang's eyes, and the remaining inner energy in his body gathered wildly. How could he be killed by monsters? The only one who can kill me is myself. The inner chi in the body became more violent, and cracks appeared on his body visible to the naked eye. Die with me, Peng Liang shouted with a frantic look. But the words in his mouth were not finished yet. Boom! A tall figure instantly fell from the sky and smashed into the head of the devil. The next moment, Peng Liang found that a palm appeared on his head. In another second, the inner chi in his body that had been so violent that he could not control it instantly calmed down. Are you all right? An urn sounded, a very dull voice sounded. Peng Liang looked at the tall figure in front of him with a dull look. Survived. A moment later, after reconfirming that he was saved, a smile appeared on his face. That smile was full of happiness and the joy of surviving. Fortunately, I can't die for the time being. Peng Liang spat out a mouthful of blood again and said weakly. Although the frantic inner chi in the body was suppressed, but because of the act of wanting to perish together just now, his injury became more serious. But the smile he looked at this tall figure was extremely bright. Well, it's fine, you can go back to heal your injuries for the time being. Seeing this colleague from the Special Adjustment Office with a bright smile on his face, Fang Ping nodded and also showed a smile. Then he looked at the man under his feet who had smashed most of his body. At this moment, the monsters who were waving the sharp arm blades on both sides frantically attacked their legs. Weak attack. Feeling the attack that was barely able to cut off his own leg hair, Fang Ping's mouth was lightly raised. Snapped. Directly stomped on the monster's head. After the promotion, the Yuanwang Gangsha, which has become more evil and terrifying, poured out, and instantly devoured all the life in the flesh and blood of the monsters under his feet. However, Fang Ping kept stroking his fingers in order to hide his apparently powerful and abnormal body. Layers of 3 light talismans and the rune aura of the Haisha talisman frantically emerged around Fang Ping's body. A few seconds later, there were hundreds of layers of rune aura on his body, and Fang Ping, who was like a little son of aura, jumped straight into the sky. Attack with Runic Aura X. Use Rune Aura to shield yourself and fight melee V. The old Taoist priests of Qingshu Mountain are not good at all, they will not use these spells at all, and they cannot exert the full power of these formations. This is the true correct way of using these spells. Leaping high, he rushed into the dozen or so colliding figures in an instant. Fang Ping grabbed part of the body of the 2 imaginary monsters. The muscles on both arms bulged, smashing them directly to the ground below. Boom! The 2 broken monsters whose bodies were smashed by Fang Ping's violent force looked at Fang Ping falling from the air. Especially looking at the layers on Fang Ping's body, hundreds of layers are even crowded with some twisted rune aura. The 2 monsters flew into the air at the same time. This idea is a bit tricky. Or go find your opponent just now, that idea is easy to bully. But they were just flying when Fang Ping rushed over and grabbed their feet again. I saw a grin on Fang Ping's face. If you don't kill me, you still want to leave. Boom. Thanks for watching, please like and subscribe.